Chapter 237. Do I have to apologize for hitting him? Even if I kill him, there's no need for that. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. It seemed that House Nia had been keeping this news a secret as well. These people didn't even know about it. Fine. I was being a busybody. Meng Yao was pissed at Jiang Tian's arrogant attitude. She humphed coldly and walked to the tea table. I was trying to help you out of kindness, but you don't know what's good for you. Fine, you can go die if you want. Meng Yao thought angrily. Miss Yi, Mr. Jiang is here. Suddenly, a languid and soft voice sounded, and a woman with a graceful figure walked out of the moon gate. The woman was in her 30s, but her skin was as smooth as jade. Her skin was even whiter than a 16-year-old girl's. Her eyes were clear and bright, and her eyebrows were curved like willow leaves. There was a hint of heroism in her. Under the hazy light, her aqua-green cheongsam embroidered with red peonies wrapped around her enchanting and exquisite figure. However, it still gave off a somewhat seductive feeling. It was enough to make an eminent monk unable to control himself. Ruoqing sis. It's been a long time. Meng Yao ran over and hugged the woman, her face full of joy as she rubbed her head against the woman's neck and said coquettishly, Ruoqing sis. The few young men who were able to summon the wind and summon the rain were like subordinates meeting their superiors. They stood up one after another, and bowed with incomparably respectful expressions. Even Nie Mingyuan had a serious look on his face. Su Ruoqing was the only daughter of Jinling's only grandmaster, Su Jinlei. House Su had been in Jinling for decades. Their connections, power, and wealth were not something ordinary families could compare to. Even House Nie and the other two houses had to be careful and avoid them. There were even rumors that Su Jinlei didn't care about worldly affairs during his seclusion. Many of House Su's clubs were under Su Ruoqing's control. In Jinling's high society, she represented House Su, the queen of Jinling's underground world. She was on the same level as Nie Mingyuan, Meng Yao, and Xia Miao's parents. Everyone take your time. I'll go out with Mr. Jiang for a few words. Su Ruoqing's gaze fell on Jiang Tian's face. She smiled charmingly, and it was as if the whole world was lit up in an instant. After saying that, she made a gesture of invitation, and walked out of the door with light steps. Jiang Tian's face was calm, as if he was not surprised at all. With his hands behind his back, he lazily followed her out, and got into a silver-gray Bentley with her. After the two of them left, the young masters and young ladies present all burst into an uproar. They couldn't believe it. How is Jiang Tian so capable? He actually got Big Sister Ruoqing to talk to him alone? Yeah, Sister Ruoqing is so respectful to him, just like how she treats our elders. Big Sister Ziwei, what kind of ability does your little brother have? Looks like you've hidden your strength well. Meng Yao was shocked, Tang Bao was amazed, and Mu Yinqing was confused. The other young masters and misses didn't know what was going on. Wasn't Jiang Tian the trash of House Jiang? How could Su Ruoqing treat him so seriously? Could it be that Su Ruoqing already knows about House Jiang's strength? Yi Ziwei frowned. She didn't know if Su Ruoqing was a friend or foe. Her heart was in a mess. Nie Mingyuan looked at Yi Ziwei, and a flash of hatred flashed in his eyes. I've been playing the hawk my whole life, but I've been pecked in the eye by a little bird. This woman is so scheming. She's been hiding Jiang Tian's strength all this time, causing House Nie to fall into a passive position. She caused us to lose House Nie's land, and my little brother to die an unnatural death. In the silver-gray Bentley, Su Ruoqing and Jiang Tian sat side by side in the back seat. Her right leg crossed over her left leg, causing the cheongsam to slide down naturally, revealing a section of her snowy white skin. It made people want to touch it. Her right leg held a high heel subconsciously, and her beautiful foot could only be held with one hand. Her ankle was soft and boneless. It was so beautiful that it shook people's souls. She smiled and said, Mr. Jiang, when I was young, I used to follow a Jianghu eccentric. I know a little about physiognomy. Can I read your palm? Take a look. Jiang Tian stretched out his left hand. Su Ruoqing's delicate hand immediately grabbed Jiang Tian's small hand. She stuck her head out and looked at it carefully. Mr. Jiang, before you were 25, you were extremely mediocre. But after you were 25, your career suddenly skyrocketed. This is a late bloomer, a dragon among men. Haha, Miss Su, you're too kind. Jiang Tian smiled noncommittally. May I ask where Miss Su is taking me? Haha, Mr. Jiang, how can you and I chat in a small room? Of course, we have to sit on the ground and overlook Jinling. Only then can we feel carefree and generous. Su Ruoqing smiled sweetly and looked at Jiang Tian with her seductive eyes. Her every frown and smile was extremely seductive. If a normal man saw her, it would be hard for him to resist and throw away his armor. At this moment, the radio in the car was playing. The city police and weather bureau issued a joint announcement. Typhoon Flower Branch is about to land in Jinling and may cause natural disasters, reminding the public to stay away from the streets for safety reasons. Miss Ruoqing, it's going to rain. Let's go back quickly. Jiang Tian smiled. You and I are children of the martial arts world. Why should we be afraid of this little bit of rain? Su Ruoqing laughed. In response, Jiang Tian could only shake his head helplessly. Haha, isn't this the Fulong Mountain area? The car quickly drove out of the city and arrived at the peak of Fulong Mountain. Jiang Tian smiled. Yes, the Fulong Mountain area. Who knows how many big families had their eyes on it, but in the end, it fell into the hands of the Jiang family. What a surprise! Su Ruoqing got out of the car and stood by the mountain road. She looked down at the lights of Jinling and smiled. But I'm more curious about how Mr. Jiang raised the 2 billion yuan capital. Haha, I used the shares of the Medicine King Group as collateral to borrow money. Jiang Tian got out of the car and smiled. Mr. Jiang, let's not beat around the bush. You may be able to hide it from others, but you can't hide it from me. You're Master Kong, famous in Lingnan. Su Ruoqing looked down at the bustling night scenery with a half-smile. Looks like you've also heard a lot of news. Jiang Tian said without any change in his expression. Master Kong, you shouldn't have returned to Jinling. Su Ruoqing shook her head and sighed. Why? There can't be 2 tigers on one mountain. Master Kong, you're leading the Lingnan heroes to attack Jinling. The Su family can't eat or sleep in peace. Su Ruoqing smiled. If you had defeated the 3 big families in Jinling, the next step would have been for the Lingnan elites to come and wipe out the Su family and unify the underground world of Jinling. Miss Ruoqing, you're overthinking it. Jiang Tian said helplessly. I came back just to revive the Jiang family. I have no interest in the underground world. Have you seen me meddle in the underground world of Jinling these days? It's just a normal business confrontation. Su Ruoqing turned around. Her eyes were as clear as a lake in autumn. She pursed her red lips and smiled. But I'm worried. What should I do to make Miss Ruoqing feel at ease? Jiang Tian laughed involuntarily. You're the only one who'll become a dead man. Su Ruoqing's bright smile was soul-stirring, but her words were cold and harsh. Master Kong, don't worry. The Jiang family is just an ordinary family. Today, I'll only kill you. I won't hurt the Jiang family. You can die in peace. Before she could finish her sentence, over 100 valiant men rushed down from both sides of the mountain path, surrounding Jiang Tian in the middle. These people were all tall and muscular. Their eyes were ferocious, and their bloodthirsty killing intent was as deep as the ocean. They were all holding machetes, axes, and other similar weapons in their hands. A cold light flashed. They were all Red Rod-level fighters from the Su family's society. They had all been bathed in blood and had rich combat experience. Every one of them was comparable to a well-trained Special Forces soldier. Just them? Jiang Tian sneered. These people were considered experts in the secular world, but in his eyes, they were just ants that he could kill with a flick of his finger. Of course, it's not just them. The greatest respect for the enemy is to kill with one blow with all your strength. Su Ruoqing smiled charmingly. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and said calmly, Kaboom! A thunderous sound was heard. It was as if a rock had crushed the ice above their heads. It made their eardrums tremble and their scalps tingle. They felt an invincible force of nature. Also, there was the roar of motorcycle engines. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed coldly and he squinted slightly. Harley heavy-duty motorcycles came from both sides of the mountain path. They brought with them endless power and stirred up clouds of dust. More than 100 heavy-duty motorcycles blocked Jiang Tian in the middle of the mountain path. Every motorcyclist was bareheaded. Dragons and tigers were tattooed on their arms. They wore riveted leather vests that revealed their muscular chests. One person was driving, and the other person behind him was carrying a long knife. This group of steel cavalry was a member of Su Ruoqing's gang, Iron Wolf. They were very mobile, and every one of them was an expert who had been through hundreds of battles. In Su Ruoqing's camp, this motorcycle gang played the role of the vanguard, and was also one of the sharpest troops. Murderous intent filled the air. Crazy murderous intent filled every motorcyclist's cold eyes, from their tightly clenched teeth, from their hands that gripped the hilts of their knives, and from the sharp knives that flashed with cold light. In the end, it formed a torrent of murderous intent that swept toward Jiang Tian mercilessly like raging waves beating the shore. On the motorcycles, there were colorful speakers and flashing lights, playing explosive metal music. The motorcyclists' eyes were fearless and incomparably ferocious. The leader was a lean young man. In the middle of his clean-shaven bald head, there was a section of dyed red hair that looked like a red coxcomb. He rode on a Harley motorcycle that was taller and more powerful than the other motorcycles. He wore high-top combat boots and a leather jacket and pants that were full of iron rings and rivets. He was full of punk style. There were dark circles under his eyes. It was unknown whether it was because he had applied eyeshadow or because he did not have enough sleep. However, his eyes were bright, cold, and filled with endless murderous intent. He held a strangely shaped machete in his hand. The blade flashed with a blue light. It was obviously dipped in poison. On his back, he carried a very domineering Zhuge repeating crossbow. Boom. There was a sound. A bolt of lightning zigzagged down like a silver snake. Instantly, bean-sized raindrops fell. The airtight curtain of rain completely enveloped Jiang Tian and many other experts. Miss Ruoqing, is this all you have? I thought you had a tank troop. But you're just a meat bag. I can still kill you in minutes. Jiang Tian was quickly drenched by the rain as he spoke disdainfully. Chapter 238. Jiang Tian, I already know that you were shot in the process of killing Nie Feng, and I just saw your palm. You were indeed stabbed in the Xixia Disciples Club. A guard came forward to help her hold up the umbrella. Su Ruoqing smiled proudly and said, I think your cultivation must have dropped a lot, even to the middle stage of iron body. Otherwise you wouldn't be injured at all. At present, this is enough to deal with you. You can try? Jiang Tian's eyes were indifferent, unmoved. Good. Then let's try. Su Ruoqing's pretty face was solemn. She gently waved her hand, and her eyes were murderous, as if she was a female general commanding thousands of troops. At this time, she revealed her monstrous domineering aura as the underground queen of Jinling. As her jade-like hand fell, rumble, the sound of disorderly footsteps could be heard. Many fierce people from different societies stepped into the puddles, splashing water everywhere. The earth shook and the mountains shook. Their momentum was astonishing. They raised their machetes and axes up high, pouncing towards Jiang Tian like ferocious tigers. Chi! A sharp machete cut through the rain, bringing with it a sharp white light as it slashed down towards Jiang Tian's neck, its speed as fast as lightning. The man with the machete was a master of the Club New World. He had served in the army and was a master of machete skills. That year, he had killed 18 heroes in a northeastern city overnight with a machete and became famous. This machete was also his stunning work. It was powerful and fierce, with the momentum of a thunderbolt. It was extremely fast, and the angle was tricky. It was untraceable. The bright blade reflected Su Ruoqing's confident smile in the distance. With this machete, Jiang Tian might not die on the spot, but he would inevitably be seriously injured. But in the next moment, Su Ruoqing's smile stiffened on her face. She could no longer smile or be proud. Clang! Jiang Tian's right hand stretched out like lightning, and two fingers accurately pinched the machete and shook it gently. There was only a cracking sound. The machete made of fine steel that could break gold and stone was shattered into pieces. The broken pieces of the blade were like butterflies fluttering in the air. Su Ruoqing's face changed dramatically. She couldn't believe it. In the next moment, she realized what was going on. She stomped her foot and said in exasperation, This kid is hiding his strength, or the Nie clan is lying to me. If Jiang Tian only had the cultivation of the iron body, he definitely wouldn't have the ability to shatter the machete. Su Ruoqing realized that she had gotten the wrong information and seriously underestimated Jiang Tian's strength. However, Su Ruoqing understood that it was meaningless to retreat at this time. She had already shown her killing intent, and Jiang Tian would never let her go. She looked at the ruthless members of the club, who were stunned by Jiang Tian's martial arts, and scolded in a sweet voice. "What are you waiting for? Chop him into mincemeat. As long as you can injure him once, you will be rewarded with 1,000,000 gold coins." As the saying goes, when there is a great reward, there will always be brave men. These ruthless men were immediately stirred up by Su Ruoqing's words, and their eyes were burning. 1,000,000. In 2008, 1,000,000 was not a small amount. It was enough to buy 2 or 3 high-end residential apartments in Jinling. Kill him. What are you afraid of? Anyway, we have more people. After a slight pause, they roared again, raised their long sabers and axes, and rushed toward Jiang Tian. Haha, a bunch of trash. You really don't know what death is. Jiang Tian laughed and waved his fingers. A 10-meter-long chi weapon swept in all directions. Suddenly swish. With a sharp sound, more than a dozen ruthless men were cut in half at the waist. Blood surged, heads flew, and bodies fell into the pool, splashing water mixed with blood. Oh my God! Looking at the broken limbs and internal organs on the ground, the remaining ruthless men were scared out of their wits. They all slammed on the brakes, and their eyeballs almost fell to the ground. They were ruthless men who killed without blinking. Almost every one of them had taken a life, but they had never seen such a tragic way of killing. Jiang Tian just waved his hand gently. They didn't even see what Jiang Tian waved his hand, and more than a dozen of their brothers fell to the ground and became corpses. Go. Yes, go. Kill him. Many ferocious men held long sabers and axes in their hands, roaring loudly despite their cowardice. But their bodies were incomparably honest, and they were all trembling and retreating. Damn it! Seeing this scene, Su Ruoqing was also scared out of her wits. Once again, Jiang Tian's judgment was refreshed, and a storm rose in her heart. She really underestimated this kid. Did this kid use a hidden weapon or true chi to hurt people in the air? If it was the latter, then he might be a real grandmaster. Iron Wolf Gang go. Su Ruoqing was indeed a ruthless person. At this time she didn't shrink back. She raised her eyebrows, gnashed her teeth and shouted loudly. This group of people was useless. It seemed that only the motorcycle gang of the Iron Wolf Gang could block 1 or 2. The leader of the Iron Wolf Gang, Red Coxcomb, suddenly waved his strange scimitar and pointed it at Jiang Tian. His voice suddenly rose by an octave, and he said sternly, "You provoked Miss Ruoqing, so you must die." The next moment, he single-handedly controlled the motorcycle to rush toward Jiang Tian. Once it accelerated, the steel monster-like motorcycle flew off the ground and drew a beautiful arc in the air. It broke through the curtain of rain, carrying monstrous power and murderous aura, and heavily crashed toward Jiang Tian. Not only did Jiang Tian not dodge, he instead sprinted forward like a bolt of lightning to greet the attack. His body broke through the curtain of rain, and the raindrops were pulled into a straight line, forming a white passage. The speed of Red Coxcomb's motorcycle was also extremely fast, and it drew a splash. The 2 splashes were like 2 violent dragons, and they met each other head-on. At this moment, everyone's hearts clenched. However, the thugs were more excited, because they knew how terrible it was to be hit by a modified Harley motorcycle. The distance of dozens of meters was covered in the blink of an eye under the rapid attack of both sides. But only a bang was heard, and the 2 heavily collided. Everyone thought that Jiang Tian would die an unnatural death, and become a corpse with broken bones and torn muscles. But the reality was beyond everyone's expectations. The entire motorcycle, together with Red Coxcomb's corpse, and blood burst out like paper paste, like a mass of fireworks bursting in all directions. Flesh, corpse, limbs, parts of the motorcycle, and tires finally fell to the ground, splashing a large amount of water. The gasoline floated on the water, soaking into blue flowers, and the blood was like blooming roses. Under the attack of the torrential rain, it disappeared in an instant. Who dares to go up? At this time Jiang Tian's white clothes were spotless, and he looked down at these ants with contempt like a god. Clang! Clang! Long knives and huge axes fell to the ground. Mr. Jiang, spare my life. I'm willing to submit and pledge my allegiance. Many fierce people were so scared that their legs went soft, and they couldn't control their knees at all. They knelt on the ground, begging for mercy. Jiang Tian's ability was beyond their scope of understanding, and they were scared out of their wits. He smashed a motorcycle into pieces with just his body. How was he human? He was clearly Iron Man or the Hulk. No, they still relied on technology and mutation, but Jiang Tian didn't rely on anything. It should be said that Jiang Tian was a god. Most people knelt on the ground, but there were also 2 reckless people who thought that the motorcycle was very fast, so they turned around and ran. Kneel and don't move. I told you to run? In response, Jiang Tian only snorted and waved his finger. With a sharp sound, a Qi soldier slashed out like the Milky Way falling from the 9th heaven, cutting a few motorcycles and their riders in half. Amidst the screams that were filled with fear and pain, corpses and severed limbs fell to the ground one after another, creating waves of blood. The motorcycle was smashed into pieces and fell to the ground. By then, Su Ruoqing was already driving a motorcycle and fleeing in the woods. The Nie family is trying to kill me with a borrowed knife. Jiang Tian's Qi soldier can cut through metal. He is obviously a transcendent master. How could he be hurt by their gunmen? When she turned around and saw this scene, she felt a bitter taste in her mouth as she cursed in exasperation. Luckily, I was cautious enough to set up 2 peak-level internal force users and 3 phenomenal success-level internal force users in this forest. Otherwise, I would have been killed. Hurry! Hurry, I'm about to enter the ambush. She turned the handlebar and stepped on the gas. Her eyes were fixed on an area in the forest. Among the 2 peak-level internal force users, Uncle Chung was the junior brother of her father, Su Zhenlei, and Brother Wei was her master's eldest disciple. They were the most elite force in the Su family. Moreover, all 5 of them came from the same sect and practiced the same cultivation method. They were best at teamwork and could easily take out a transcendent master. The motorcycle broke through the rain like a cheetah and sped through the woods. Soon, she reached the ambush spot. Then, she saw Jiang Tian coming after her. Jiang Tian actually soared into the sky and broke through the rain, leaving behind a faint white shadow. He traversed a distance of tens of meters and landed on a huge rock less than 5 meters away from her. Master Kong, I have underestimated your strength. This time I admit defeat. As long as you don't kill me, the Su family will listen to your orders. Su Ruoqing rolled down from the motorcycle and knelt down in front of Jiang Tian. Tears welled up in her eyes. Su family? You are just an ant. You have no right to be my lackey. Besides, you are a traitor. I don't trust you. Jiang Tian looked at her indifferently. Su Ruoqing prostrated herself on the ground and begged. Jiang Tian, if you don't believe me, I am willing to be your woman and let you conquer me. As she spoke, she crawled toward Jiang Tian. She swayed her slender waist and stuck out her butt. The qi pao that was drenched by the rain clung tightly to her body, outlining her slender waist, pink buttocks, and full breasts. She was undoubtedly exposed, and could be said to be enchanting and charming to the extreme. She rode the motorcycle all the way. Her cheongsam was torn by the branches and vines, revealing her beautiful back and legs. There were even traces of blood on them, giving her a wild beauty that could captivate one's soul. Suddenly, Su Ruoqing heard a rustling sound behind Jiang Tian. She knew it was Uncle Chung. She lowered her head even more to hide the smug smile in the depths of her eyes. Your ambush is too crude. However, Jiang Tian did not even look at her. With a cold snort, he suddenly raised his right hand and pointed out a few times. The finger light hit nothing but air. Thud, thud, thud. 5 corpses fell out of the forest and fell from the trees. Each of them had a bloody hole in their forehead. Uncle Chung, Brother Wei, and the other experts were killed by Jiang Tian before they could come out. How did he find out? How is that possible? How can he be so strong? Su Ruoqing's heart sank. She was shocked and terrified. Her eyes were filled with despair and her body was trembling. Perhaps the snipers I set up in ambush can kill him. That is a Barrett sniper rifle, and it uses armor-piercing bullets. Su Ruoqing forced herself to calm down. There was still a glimmer of hope in her heart. Chapter 239. To be able to replace Su Zhenlei and dominate Jinling for so many years, Su Ruoqing was definitely not stupid. She could even be said to be very smart. Even though all signs pointed to the possibility that Jiang Tian was an iron body cultivator, she was still very careful to ensure that this operation would be foolproof. She placed 5 snipers that were hired from abroad at high points within a 2-kilometer radius. All of them were equipped with the best sniper rifles and the most powerful armor-piercing bullets. These bullets could easily penetrate walls, bulletproof vests, steel plates, and even military armored vehicles and tanks. As for living people, they would be directly shot in half. She believed that even Qi refinement grandmasters like Hu Qingtian and Li Tuofeng would not be able to block the bullets of these snipers. And this ambush was located in a flat area. The 5 snipers could all aim and shoot. It could be said that Jiang Tian had no chance of survival. Bang bang bang. A few muffled sounds echoed in the forest. The 5 snipers fired almost at the same time. Jiang Tian was already alert. He reached out his right hand and caught all 5 bullets in his hand. Then he raised his hand and the bullets flew in all directions. Bang! A huge tree that required one person to wrap their arms around it was directly blown apart by the bullet fired by Jiang Tian, breaking it in half. Then, a few short and soft screams sounded. The forest returned to silence. Dead silence. Only the dense sound of rain hitting the leaves and the mountain rocks, and Su Ruoqing's rapid heartbeat could be heard. Master Kong, I know I was wrong. Su Ruoqing, the powerful underground queen of Jinling, who was known as the Green Bamboo Snake, was completely convinced. She was also afraid of death. Just now, she was just putting on an act to confuse Jiang Tian and make Jiang Tian let down his guard. But now she was really scared. She crawled on the ground and couldn't help but tremble. Jiang Tian, please accept me. I am willing to be your woman. I am willing to follow you. She raised her tearful little face and begged for mercy. Jiang Tian was definitely a grandmaster at the peak of the transcendent state. He was able to kill 5 internal force martial Dao masters in a row as if he was crushing bugs. Not even a sniper rifle equipped with armored shells could kill him. Even if her father came out of seclusion, he would still be an ant that Jiang Tian could casually slap to death. How could she not be afraid? Jiang Tian looked at her coldly. This kind of gaze made Su Ruoqing's heart jump and her soul leave her body. Unlike other men who looked at her with aggressive desire, reverence and fear, Jiang Tian looked at her as if he was looking at a bedbug. I promise I'll be loyal to you. I know you're married, so I won't be jealous. I just want to be the woman behind you. If you get me, you'll get the underground world of Jinling without spending a single soldier. I can even help you get rid of the Nie family and the other 2 families. The Su family has dominated Jinling City for more than 20 years. They have endless connections and power, and they have 20 billion in legal assets. At this moment, she was like a pear blossom in the rain, delicate and pitiful as she begged with soft words. Her waist swayed, and her tender and plump snow-white chest was exposed, extremely alluring. She crawled in front of Jiang Tian and pressed her plump and soft chest against Jiang Tian's leg. Haha, you ugly bitch, you still want to seduce me? Look at yourself in the rain. Jiang Tian lifted his leg and kicked her to the side. He silently smiled and said, You can't even compare to a strand of hair on my beloved wife's head. Moreover, you're so old. Who gave you the confidence to show off your brainlessness and shamelessness? Jiang Tianyi. Su Ruoqing was kicked 5 meters away by Jiang Tian. Her head hit a rock hard and blood gushed out from her forehead. She was ashamed, shocked, and angry. She stood up and shouted, Jiang Tian, do you really want to kill me and become the enemy of the Su family? You might not be afraid of the Su family, but what about your family? You dare to threaten me? Jiang Tianyu raised his white palm. Su Ruoqing was scared out of her wits. She knew that if Jiang Tian's hand landed on her, she would be turned into a pile of meat paste. She quickly knelt on the ground and said in a trembling voice, I don't dare. It's just that my family doesn't know about your strength, and my family has a lot of connections in the government. Jiang Tian crossed his hands behind his back and stood proudly on the rock. He sneered and said, "You are talking about your third uncle, Su Ziyuan, the deputy director of the Jinling City Police Department, right? Secretary Yu is going to kill him. Our plan is to wipe out the entire Su family." "What? You know Secretary Yu?" Su Ruoqing's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't believe it. "You are ignorant. You don't know about my strength and connections." Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with contempt. He said sarcastically, "You only know that I am the Master Kong of Lingnan, but you don't know that I am Kong Teichu, the man who killed Lin Zhenyu at the Martial Arts Alliance conference." It seemed that the Su family was not that powerful after all. They didn't even know Chen Fan's strength before they were used as cannon fodder by the Nie family. No wonder Su Jinlei was trapped in Jinling City. "What? You are Kong Teichu, the most powerful grandmaster under the immortal state?" Su Ruoqing was completely dumbfounded. The fact that Jiang Tian was in charge of Lingnan was enough to shock people. He had surpassed the concept of a young hero, and could be called the overlord of a region. Just like Nie Mingyuan, Xia Miao, and Su Ruoqing in Jinling City, they were all young heroes, but they couldn't be compared to Nie Zhanghai. They needed time to build up their strength. However, Jiang Tian was the overlord of Lingnan. He was on par with Nie Zhanghai and Sun Lingyun. He was already able to suppress Su Ruoqing, which was enough to shock her. But now, she realized that she had seriously underestimated Jiang Tian's strength. Master Kong of Lingnan was on a completely different level compared to Kong Teichu, who killed Lin Zhenyu at the Martial Arts Alliance conference. It could be said that since the second half of last year, Kong Teichu's name had become a taboo in the upper class of Wuxia. He was like a god high and mighty. To be able to suppress martial arts giants like Hu Qingtian, Wu Yingxiong Yi Wudao, and Yi Zhantian was the only one in Wuxia who could be on par with him. Now there were many powerful forces that wanted to rely on Jiang Tian. This kind of prestige was not something that Su Jinlei could compare to. It could be said that with a word from Jiang Tian, the martial arts world of Wuxia could uproot the Su family from Jinling. There was no need for Jiang Tian to do it himself. Thinking of this, Su Ruoqing complained in her heart. She was so scared that her heart almost exploded on the spot. She hurriedly said, "Master Kong, I'm completely convinced. I'm willing to be your slave and follow you. I won't take you. I'm afraid my wife won't like it if I take a woman as a maid." Jiang Tian shook his head indifferently. Su Ruoqing's face was blank. She couldn't believe it. Kong Teichu is such a powerful figure in Wuxia. Is he afraid of his wife? But at this moment of life and death, she didn't have time to think about this. She hurriedly said, "Master Kong, I can help you get rid of the Nie family, Chen family and Sun family. I know you care about your reputation. You don't want to appear so vicious and ruthless." Jiang Tian was slightly stunned. Then he smiled and said, "Little girl, you're a smart person. I already have Shen Mange as my zither attendant. I still need a sword attendant. Fine, you can be my sword attendant." Big families like the Nie family had decades of history. Not only did they have deep roots in Jinling, their connections could be said to be all over Wuxia. The most obvious thing was that they had connections in Wudong. Jiang Tian wasn't afraid of semi-hidden sects like Wudong, but the problem was that Jiang Tian wanted to help Qing'er find the new flower. He didn't want to make too many enemies. Instead, he wanted to build up good karma and be kind to people. And with Su Ruoqing, this vicious dog that was good at biting people, he could hide behind the scenes. Even if the Nie family and Wudong came for revenge, Jiang Tian would have an extra layer of defense. "Master Kong, don't worry. I'll be loyal." Su Ruoqing was delighted and hurriedly promised. "I'm worried," Jiang Tian sneered and said. "You're born with a treacherous nature. You're naturally rebellious and cunning. I have to control you 100%. At this moment, Jiang Tian suddenly raised his hand. A red light gathered and jumped at his fingertips. Then, Jiang Tian waved his hand and the red light hit Su Ruoqing's chest. What is this?" Su Ruoqing felt her chest heat up. She turned around and unbuttoned her cheongsam. She couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Streaks of strange patterns formed a huge red lotus flower that enveloped her chest. She rubbed her hands with all her might, but the red lotus was like a tattoo that was deeply embedded in her skin. Under the faint sunlight, it gave off a strange and eerie feeling. This is Heartburst, a small spell. Even if we're 100 miles apart, as long as I willed it, your heart would explode and you would die an unnatural death. Jiang Tian said coldly. What? You dare to treat me like this? Su Ruoqing was furious. She stood up and waved her hands. She was the queen of Jinling's underground world. She could submit to Jiang Tian, but how could she be controlled like this? How dare you talk to me like this? You want to die? Jiang Tian coldly snorted. His fingers formed a seal, and a spell was cast. Suddenly, the Heartburst spell on Su Ruoqing's chest emitted rays of red light and covered her whole body. Su Ruoqing felt her heart expand rapidly, as if it was about to explode. Her internal organs were in severe pain, and her blood flow accelerated. Her eyes were red and the blood vessels all over her body bulged like earthworms. Then, her skin was torn open and blood oozed out of her 7 orifices. Ah! It hurt so much. Su Ruoqing was in so much pain that she couldn't even stand properly. She fell to the ground and rolled around, getting dirty all over. At that moment, she finally felt the terrifying power of Heartburst. It was as if a demon's claw had grabbed her heart and was tearing and ravaging it. That feeling was truly worse than death. This area of Mount Fulong was silent and somber. Only her shrill screams and the sound of her struggling could be heard. This guy is simply a demon. He tortured Miss Ruoqing until she couldn't even speak. Countless Su family members knelt on the ground and listened to Su Ruoqing's screams in silence. Their hearts were beating like drums, and they couldn't stop trembling. Su Ruoqing was a ruthless woman. She was ruthless to her enemies and opponents, but even more ruthless to herself. They had once seen Su Ruoqing being injured by a bullet during a gang fight, but she calmly used a knife to cut open the wound and took out the bullet. She was still able to talk and laugh with the group of heroes, laughing and cursing. Don't be fooled by her delicate and charming appearance. In fact, she was even more manly than a man. But in this situation, this person, this Master Kong, how ruthless was he? Chapter 240. This torture lasted for a full 5 minutes. In the end, Su Ruoqing's internal organs were ruptured, and she was bleeding internally. Many of her blood vessels had burst, and her skin was chapped and covered with blood. Her mouth was also bleeding, and her hair was disheveled. She looked like an evil spirit that had crawled out from the depths of hell. Master Kong, Jiang, I'm convinced. Don't torture me anymore. Just kill me. Su Ruoqing couldn't hold on any longer, and begged Jiang Tian to end her life, so that she could die quickly. However, Jiang Tian made a hand seal to remove the spell and repair her body. In just a breath's time, Su Ruoqing had become an enchanting femme fatale with snow-white skin. However, at this time, there was no arrogance or resistance in her eyes. There was only deep fear, and submission. Now do you know the horror of bursting with joy? Jiang Tian put his hands behind his back and said coldly, in the future, if you dare to have the slightest disobedience, I'll kill you just like this. Yes, master. Su Ruoqing shuddered and then lowered her arrogant head. She was as silent as a cicada in winter. She wasn't afraid of death, but she was afraid of dying so miserably. The torture just now was more terrible than the torture in hell. She almost couldn't help but bite her tongue to commit suicide. What shocked her even more was that her flesh had been torn apart by Jiang Tian's spell. But with a wave of Jiang Tian's hand, her broken organs and chapped skin were instantly restored. It could be said that the shock Jiang Tian brought her was simply subversive. His spells and martial arts had reached the point where he could control the life and death of others. He was like a god, completely subduing her and making her unable to raise the slightest resistance. A typhoon suddenly arrived and heavy rain fell from the sky. The people who had been talking in the courtyard of the Banana Club had now come to a tea room. They were burning incense and drinking tea while chatting. Why isn't he back yet? However, Yi Ziwei wasn't in the mood. Instead, she stood anxiously in front of the window. Her beautiful eyes were full of worry and sadness as she stared at the heavy rain pouring down on a fat banana tree in front of the steps. She raised her hand to look at the time on her watch from time to time. Why did Miss Su ask Jiang Tian out? There won't be any disputes, right? Yi Ziwei was anxious, her heart was in a mess, she blamed herself. I should have stopped Xiao Tian. Ziwei, if you agree to marry me now, perhaps I can plead for your brother and ask Miss Su to let him go. Nie Mingyuan suddenly walked over and said softly with a smile. Haha. Why does Miss Su want to deal with Jiang Tian? Yi Ziwei asked calmly. A mountain cannot hold two tigers. You can't hide it from me. Jiang Tian is Ling Nan's master Kong. Nie Mingyuan held a fine porcelain teacup from Jing Dejun and slowly tasted the green and clear Mount Lu cloud mist tea. He said with a smile. Do you think the Su family will allow Jiang Tian to grow up? When Jiang Tian took down the Fulong Mountain, everyone was shocked. Are you trying to drive a wedge between us? Despicable. Yi Ziwei's beautiful eyes suddenly turned cold. She turned around and glared at Nie Mingyuan with hatred. Haha, I admit that your brother is very capable, but there's a screw loose in his head. Nie Mingyuan stood there calmly, giving people a sense of elegance and elegance. He snorted disdainfully. The Su family controls many forces in Jinling. If you want people, you have guns, and you have powerful martial artists. Plus, with Su Ruoqing's venomous mind, I'm afraid Jiang Tian is already dead. Seeing Yi Ziwei's expression change drastically and her beautiful eyes about to tear up, Nie Mingyuan felt even more delighted and smug. He calmly sipped his tea and sneered. He dared to kill my brother, fight for the Fulong Mountain, and make an enemy of the Nie family. His time of death has come. Originally, we only wanted to acquire the Medicine King group, but he forced me to kill him. Now the entire Jiang family will be buried with him. You want to get rid of the Jiang family with just you. Suddenly, a faint voice sounded. Everyone turned around and saw Jiang Tian with Su Ruoqing walking in lazily with his hands behind his back. Su Ruoqing had changed her clothes, but she no longer had the arrogance and strength of the underground queen of Jinling. Instead, she followed Jiang Tian step by step like a maid. Her head was slightly lowered, and her body was slightly bowed. Her eyes were fearful, and she was extremely obedient. Seeing this, Xiao Miao, Mu Yunqing, Chu Mingyao, Tang Bao Lei Gang, and the others were shocked. They couldn't believe it. Nie Mingyuan looked as if he had been struck by lightning. He was dumbfounded and stood there motionless like a clay sculpture. Jiang Tian, are you okay? Yi Ziwei hurriedly walked over and grabbed Jiang Tian's hand, asking anxiously. What can happen? Jiang Tian comforted her by patting the back of her hand. He walked lazily to the sofa and sat down. He crossed his legs and stretched out his hand. Master, please have some tea. Under everyone's incredulous gazes, Su Ruoqing half knelt on the ground and poured tea for Jiang Tian personally. Then, she lowered her head and held the cup with both hands, serving it to him softly. Oh my God! Chu Mingyao's heart almost jumped out of her throat. She was dazzled. What's going on? Xiao Miao's scalp went numb, and her eyes almost popped out. When did Jiang Tian become so powerful? Su Ruoqing actually called him master and served him tea personally. I didn't hear wrongly, did I? Tang Bao Er's beautiful eyes were wide open. She covered her mouth with her right hand, trying to suppress the scream that was about to burst out. Her full chest heaved up and down violently, creating dazzling waves. This was the underground queen of Jinling. Even Nie Mingyuan had to treat her with caution and respect. But now, as expected, he's Kong Teichu. I didn't see wrongly that day. He's Kong Teichu, the one who killed Lin Jingyu. Lei Gang's eyes were filled with wariness. Recalling Jiang Tian's invincible might that caused the water in Poyang Lake to flip upside down, he couldn't help but feel his legs go soft. He screamed in his heart, but he didn't dare to make even the slightest sound. So, I was wrong. I was wrong from the beginning to the end. Mu Yunqing suddenly understood something, and her heart was filled with deep regret. She'd always thought that Jiang Tian was only relying on his family's protection to be able to go against House Nie, especially after Jiang Tian beat up Nie Feng. She felt that Jiang Tian was too rash and had offended a powerful person. But she'd forgotten one thing. If Jiang Tian was able to scare Yu Chong to the ground, How could it be as simple as relying on House Zhang's protection? If he'd pursued me when I was younger, I would have said yes. If I'd stood by his side when he was messing with Nie Feng, then I wouldn't have ended up like this. She thought of many things in that instant, and her entire body was filled with bitterness and regret. Nie Mingyuan, let me ask you, can you get rid of House Zhang by yourself? Jiang Tian took a sip of tea and slowly pushed the floating tea leaves with the lid of the teacup. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows, and the cold light in his eyes shot to Nie Mingyuan like two cold lightning bolts as he asked in a deep voice. For a moment, Nie Mingyuan felt as if he was being stared at by the god of death, and he shivered subconsciously. Jiang Tian, I was just joking with Ziwei. Nie Mingyuan was indeed Nie Mingyuan. He knew when to yield and when to stand tall. Under Jiang Tian's huge pressure, he could still pile up a gentle smile on his face. He walked slowly to Jiang Tian and said sincerely, "Don't take it to heart. I don't like this joke." Jiang Tian smiled indifferently, and then his eyes suddenly turned cold. He said in a cold voice, "Ruoqing, slap her." "Yes, master." Su Ruoqing didn't hesitate at all. She was like a gust of wind, sweeping out with a faint afterimage. There was a loud and clear sound that shook people's hearts. The crowd didn't even see how Su Ruoqing did it. Nie Mingyuan flew out of the door like a dead dog. Bang! Nie Mingyuan landed in the mud, splashing water everywhere. His face was like peach blossoms, and blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth, mixed with a few broken teeth. He was dizzy and couldn't stop moaning. He couldn't even get up. Su Ruoqing was really angry, and this slap was very heavy. If it wasn't for Nie Mingyuan's incitement, she definitely wouldn't have attacked Jiang Tian. Now she suffered a great loss, lost her dignity, and became a servant. Of course, it was good to be the servant of a strong person like Jiang Tian, but if she could live peacefully with Jiang Tian, and become Jiang Tian's friend or even woman, wouldn't that be better? SSS-. On the side, Mingyao, Tangbao Lei Gang Xiaomiao, and the others all sucked in a breath of cold air, and kept quiet out of fear. They looked at Jiang Tian with more and more fear. It seemed that Su Ruoqing really submitted to Jiang Tian. She was simply following his orders like it was her own arm. Moreover, this was not just a matter of Su Ruoqing surrendering to Jiang Tian alone. Instead, it represented the fact that many of the societies under the Su family had submitted to Jiang Tian. If news of this were to spread out, it would definitely cause a world-shaking earthquake. "Master, just say the word and I'll kill him right now." Seeing Nie Mingyuan beaten up so badly, Su Ruoqing felt a perverted pleasure in her heart. If I wanted to kill him, would I still let him live until now? Jiang Tian sipped his tea leisurely and smiled indifferently. He waved his hand, indicating for Nie Mingyuan to scram. He wanted to use all methods to torture Nie Mingyuan. He wanted him to taste the pain of losing everything like he did in his previous life. No, this wasn't enough. He wanted to return it 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. He wanted to make Nie Mingyuan fall into complete despair. On the side, Su Ruoqing shivered. Her eyes were filled with fear. Who knew what kind of torture Nie Mingyuan would experience in the future? It was too scary. Soon, the gathering at Banana Clubhouse left in a hurry. However, Su Ruoqing also warned everyone not to say a word about what happened tonight. Otherwise, they would suffer from House Su's bloody revenge. Although everyone was puzzled, they were afraid of House Su's power. Who would dare to ask? Yi Ziwei drove Jiang Tian home. Jiang Tian, Nie Mingyuan said that you killed his brother, Nie Feng. Is this true? Yi Ziwei was worried the whole way. She only asked with a frown when they were almost at the villa's entrance. It's true, but you can't blame me for this. Jiang Tian briefly explained what happened that day. Why are you so attentive to Huanglinger? You still have old feelings for her? This won't do. You can't let Qing'er down. Yi Ziwei frowned and exhorted. Chapter 241. I know. Don't worry. I've already taken care of her. Jiang Tian smiled faintly, but there was a hint of bitterness in his eyes. What's going on tonight? Why did Su Ruoqing change her clothes? Did you? Yi Ziwei obviously misunderstood. She couldn't be blamed for this. In his previous life, Jiang Tian was really a playboy, womanizer, and had countless love debts. He wasn't good at other things, but he was good at picking up girls. Jiang Tian must have conquered Su Ruoqing in a short time. That was why Su Ruoqing's attitude changed so drastically. I'm going to faint. What are you thinking about? I conquered her by relying on my own strength. I will never let Qing'er down. Jiang Tian was speechless. The death of Niafeng and Sun Lingyu didn't cause much of a stir in the upper-class society of Jin City. The Nia family, the Sun family, and the Chen family, who were related to the death of Niafeng and Sun Lingyu, all kept a tight lid on the news. Su Ruoqing's allegiance to Jiang Tian was only known by a few people in the upper-class society. After being threatened and warned by Su Ruoqing, no one dared to say anything. Therefore, this matter was rarely known. Jiang Tian's life seemed to be peaceful. However, the situation in Jinling had already changed. All kinds of forces gathered in Jinling, ready to strike. I'm afraid the Jiang clan's strength isn't as weak as we thought. Niafeng actually died at the hands of the Jiang clan's crown prince, Jiang Tian. Young Master Nia, it's not good for you to hide this from me. In a luxurious golf course in the city center of Jinling, a white-haired man waved his club elegantly. To be able to build such a huge golf hotel in the city center, where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold, it was enough to show the owner's shocking wealth. However, the upper-class society of Jinling knew that this golf hotel was just one of the many places this man had for leisure and entertainment. Nie Mingyuan and Xiao Miao, who could do anything in Jinling, accompanied him on the side. Xiao Miao's eyes were filled with reverence, as if she was a fan who had seen her idol. Professor Fong, I didn't mean to hide it from you. I was just worried that it would affect the morale of the people. A trace of astonishment flashed across Nie Mingyuan's face when he heard this, and then he seemed to be a little embarrassed as he said, only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win 100 battles. I hope that young Master Nie will tell me everything you know and share information with me. Professor Fong paced around the court lazily. He was already in his 50s, but his body was in good shape. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, and he didn't have the greasiness of a middle-aged man. He must have been a handsome man when he was young. How much does Professor Fong know about Jiang Tian? Nie Mingyuan handed Professor Fong a bottle of Evian mineral water, and asked with a smile. Hong Kong and Guangzhou face each other across the sea. Both sides have a lot of cooperation. I think I know more than you. Professor Fong was wearing a pair of casual pants, a polo shirt, and a baseball cap. He looked like a rich man. He smiled and said, this man dominated Lingnan and Yangqing City. He's not just a martial arts expert, he's also an expert in sorcery. Hong Kong's feng shui master Sumajai told me that he was the one who killed Wei Shuofeng. That's what we heard as well. He is known as the Master Kong of Jiangbei. Nie Mingyuan nodded and said with interest, Professor Fong, you're not afraid of the Jiang family and Jiang Tian, are you? Afraid? What's there to be afraid of? Professor Fong cracked a cold smile and said, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. He is an expert in sorcery and martial arts. However, I'm good at business operations and financial transactions. I know that he has a powerful background and is a ruthless and destructive person. However, the capital market was all about transactions, layout, and construction. He might be able to stop the Medicine King Group's share price from plummeting, but he can't stop my team from buying and selling. Nie Mingyuan clapped his hands and smiled. Professor Fong is right. There are rules in business. We are just operating according to the law. No matter how powerful his background is, he can't break the rules and kill people. Otherwise, there will be no place for Jiang Tian and Wuxia. Professor Fong smiled in disdain. Over the past year, under Jiang Qingfeng's leadership, the management strategy of the Medicine King Group has been constantly changing. Their main business has been in a weak state, and now that they're spending money to buy the Fulong Mountain, it's considered leaving their main business and diversifying. No one can save a company like this. That's right. Besides, the old man of the Jiang family is seriously ill. The Medicine King Group has lost its edge. Xiao Miao chimed in. With the funding from the 3 major families of Jin City and my trading team, I can guarantee that the Medicine King Group will change hands within a month. Professor Fong stood on the putting green, and looked at the lake in the distance. He sneered and said loudly and clearly, "Professor Fong, it's my honor to be able to fight alongside you." Xia Miao's body trembled when she heard Professor Fong's words. Then her eyes were filled with admiration. Although Professor Fong seemed to be inconspicuous, he actually had a powerful background. His full name was Fong Zhanbua, and he was a famous prodigy in Hong Kong's stock market. He received a master's degree in finance from the Wharton School when he was 16 and got his doctorate in corporate finance in 1.5 years. His mentor was the Nobel laureate Oliver Hart. He had taught at many Ivy League business schools in the United States and was a consultant for the World Bank. He returned to Hong Kong in 1996 and became the chief professor of corporate finance at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. During the 1997 Asian financial crisis, Feng Yu set up White Knight Fund and worked with the 4 consortiums in Hong Kong to support China's central bank. They defeated Soros and Quantum Fund and won the war to protect the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and Forex market. Since then, Feng Yu became famous. After that, the White Knight Fund became famous for shorting listed companies. Their battle results were valiant, and they won every battle. In 2004, they defeated DeLong Group, which had a market value of tens of billions. In 2005, they defeated Colin Electronics. In 2006, they defeated Craftsman Brothers Pictures and Feiyang Heavy Industries. In 2007, they defeated Reno International. It could be said that wherever the White Knight Fund went, mountains and rivers would crumble. Corpses would be strewn everywhere. Many shareholders and managers of listed companies would tremble in fear. The White Knight Fund's method of shorting a listed company was to audit the financial statements and public information of the listed company. If the company was found to be fraudulent or deceptive, they would short the company through securities lending or reverse mergers. Fong Zhanbua could be said to be a powerful figure in the financial industry. He had many allies. He would ask many funds and investors to short the target company and then issue a third-party report. After that, the lawyers would file a class action lawsuit and let the judicial and regulatory agencies make the final decision. This would further destroy the target company's share price. Professor Fong, with you around, I believe that we will definitely win. Nie Mingyuan was excited. Then he snorted and said with disdain, "What bullshit, Jiangbei Master Kong. He will become a pauper in minutes." Professor Fong, many fund companies, private equity funds, investors, media companies, and third-party research institutions are waiting for you in the conference room. Xia Miao looked at the phone and then said to Professor Fong with a face full of joy, "Professor Fong, you are really something. I heard that you are the one behind this. Dozens of investors have come to Jinling City. I estimate that you will raise at least 20 billion yuan this time. Well, let's go." Fong Zhanbua stretched his back and then walked toward the hotel. Jiang Tian, so what if you are good at Dharma spells? This is a financial war. You are just a country bumpkin. You are going to run out of tricks this time. Nie Mingyuan's face was gloomy. His eyes were filled with hatred and his lips curled into a mocking smile. After Jiang Tian's rebirth, he had indeed caused some butterfly effects. For example, the Nie family and the other 2 major families had brought forward their attack on the Jiang family. For example, the Su family, a martial arts family that had been dormant for many years, was ready to make a move. And the scene in front of him. In his last life, it was Xia Miao's team that defeated the Medicine King Group's hostile takeover. And now, it was Fong Zhanbua, who had experienced the Asian financial crisis and become famous in the Asian financial market. Powerful people were coming, and the city was about to be destroyed. On this day, Jiang Tian had just finished setting up the production line. When he returned to the villa, he ran into Yi Ziwei. He smiled faintly and said, "Sister, the pills I showed you before can be mass-produced." "What? So fast?" Yi Ziwei couldn't believe it. "Well, I will choose a factory. Starting tomorrow, all the production lines will start." Jiang Tian smiled faintly. "Prepare a new product launch and a signing ceremony with the military and the Ministry of Health." With that, Jiang Tian went to the airport again to welcome a financial expert who had just returned from Wall Street, Chen Jinming. Chen Jinming was only 27 or 28 years old. He was tall and handsome. He wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, a white shirt, straight pants, and shiny leather shoes. He looked like a businessman. Behind him was a group of foreigners with blonde hair and blue eyes. Some were pulling suitcases, some were carrying laptops. All of them were smart and capable. They were the trading team of his one-eye fund. Jiang Tian, thank you for reminding me. I made $500 million by shorting the U.S. real estate subprime loans. Chen Jinming hugged Jiang Tian warmly, then punched Jiang Tian hard. His face was full of excitement. After Jiang Tian's reminder, he had done research on the subprime loans in the U.S. last year and discovered the repayment crisis. He had used financial derivatives to short the real estate subprime loans and made a lot of money. Now he was famous on Wall Street. For this, Paramount Pictures even used his team as a prototype to shoot a pseudo-documentary called The Big Short. However, he really couldn't understand. Jiang Tian had always been ignorant and incompetent, and had never come into contact with finance. How could he make such accurate judgments and see through the fog, and see through the crisis of the U.S. real estate subprime bonds? Haha, you're starting to go solo now, right? Jiang Tian's face was calm, but his eyes flashed with a touch of affection. In his previous life, Chen Jinming, who was also a disciple of Qixia County, had saved the Jiang family with real money. However, because the fundamentals of the Medicine King Group were broken and they didn't have enough funds, the other party's trading team and funds were too strong. Not only did Chen Jinming fail to save the Medicine King Group, but he also lost everything. He was so angry at Xia Miao that he vomited blood and became seriously ill. In this life, Jiang Tian's domineering return could be said to have created an environment that was blessed by the heavens, the earth, and the people. He didn't want Chen Jinming to save the Jiang family. Instead, he wanted him to fight side by side with him to defeat the three big families. At the same time, he made a lot of money. Chapter 242. Yes, that's right. Chen Jinming joked. Why did you call me back this time? You even want me to lead a team. Let me tell you, my team's salary is very high. I heard that there are some problems with Medicine King Group. There are some problems with Medicine King Group before, but there will be a few new products coming out soon. There won't be any problems. Jiang Tian pulled him out of the airport. Yi Ziwei had already sent a few cars to wait for them. Everyone got in one after another. Jiang Tian and Chen Jinming sat in the same car. In the car, Jiang Tian opened a bottle of red wine and said indifferently, "Take a look at Medicine King Group's recent stock chart, as well as the related information of Dynasty Real Estate, 100 Herb Pharmaceuticals, and Shanghai Real Estate. Someone is buying up Medicine King Group's chips at a low price." Chen Jinming quickly scanned and said with a smile, "It should be someone who wants to fight for Medicine King Group's shares, right?" "Yes, that's right." Jiang Tian nodded. Chen Jinming asked, "If you just want to keep Medicine King Group, it's easy. I have enough funds. But since you've given me the information of these three listed companies, what are your plans?" "I want to control these three listed companies and sweep the Sun, Chen, and Nye families out of the door," Jiang Tian said indifferently. "The market value of these three companies is close to 100 billion yuan. My few billion yuan is not enough. Moreover, it's not easy for me to transfer money in a short time. How many bullets have you prepared for me?" Chen Jinming frowned. Jiang Tian held up 5 fingers. 5 billion? Chen Jinming nodded and threw the information aside. He rubbed his chin and said, "It's a little difficult, but give me 3 months, and I should be able to do it." "Not 5 billion. Jiang Tian shook his head and said, "It's 50 billion. Fuck." Chen Jinming's hand trembled, and the red wine splashed on his crotch. He screamed, "Where did you get so much money? You're too much of a freak. With so many bullets, what are you going to do to the 3 major families?" Jiang Tianyi said with a smile. This time, Jiang Tian had been planning for a long time. He had mobilized all the liquid funds in Lingnan. In fact, Yangqing Soup, Bai and Tai, as well as Jiangbei's Yuanhang, Longwei, and other companies could only draw out 10 billion yuan of liquid funds. After all, they were all in the business and most of their assets were fixed assets. However, Jiang Tian asked them to mortgage all of it and borrow money from banks and various financial institutions. In this way, 50 billion yuan was quickly gathered. Speaking of which, with his current cultivation, Jiang Tian could easily annihilate the Nie, Chun and Sun families of Jinling. However, Jiang Tian had an obsession. He wanted to completely devour these three clans, just like how they had defeated the Medicine King group back then. Smashed. Beat him until even his own mother can't recognize him. Chen Jinming slapped his thigh, his blood boiling. This is our battle command, Jiang Tian said with a smile. Jiang Tian bought another villa in the western suburbs of Jinling. It was specially used as the living and working place of the trading team. Chen Jinming, nice to meet you again. Yi Ziwei and Jiang Lin, two stunning beauties, were standing at the door in professional suits, welcoming the arrival of VIPs. Lin, you are so beautiful. Chen Jinming's eyes lit up as he exclaimed in disbelief. He held Jiang Lin's hand tightly and refused to let go. Haha. Jiang Tian chuckled as he looked at his cousin's blushing face. He remembered that Chen Jinming liked Jiang Tian a lot when he was a teenager. He would ask Jiang Tian to help him deliver love letters. In his last life, he came back to help the Jiang family. Of course, it was because of him, but also because of Jiang Lin. However, in his last life, they lost the business war. Chen Jinming carried a huge debt and returned to America. How could he fall in love with his cousin? His deep feelings for her must have been hidden deep in his heart. In this life, I hope that all of you will be able to create glory, so that you won't let down this life and you can have a good ending. Haha, I was an ugly duckling back then. I'm not as good as someone. Jiang Lin pulled her hand back and said with a smile, President Chen, you are very successful in America's Wall Street. I've seen the documentary Too Big to Fail. I heard that people at your level like to sleep with women. I, Chen Jinming, swear that I have never slept with women. Chen Jinming promised nervously. What does that have to do with me? Jiang Lin blushed and glanced at Jiang Tian, who had a faint smile on his face. She lowered her eyes and said, Let's go to the office. Not bad, Jiang Tian. This place is quite interesting. Chen Jinming walked into the villa and looked around. The living room on the first floor had been turned into a 200 square meters large conference room. Half of it was occupied by a conference table with all kinds of documents piled up on it. In the other half, 20 workstations had been set up. Many LCD screens that could be raised and lowered were arranged in a disorderly manner. In addition, there were hundreds of gigabits of fiber optic connections, projectors, ergonomic swivel chairs, printers, photocopiers, videophones, and other new office facilities. There were more than 10 rooms on the second and third floors. All kinds of living facilities were also the latest. These top financial talents from Wall Street were amazed. In addition, there were a few reliable chefs and servants. They were all agile and didn't need to go out to eat. The meeting started quickly. Chen Jinming said, Actually, America's financial regulation is very strict. The most serious market manipulation is in the Asian market. I've done a lot of research on these financial manipulations, but after all, it's just theory. I need someone who is familiar with the local financial environment and laws. Our group also has a securities investment department. We can transfer a group of people over. Yi Ziwei said. No, call Jiang Bangxia over. Jiang Tian waved at Yi Ziwei. Yes. Yi Ziwei quickly contacted him. When Jiang Bangxia heard that Jiang Tian was going to launch a financial attack, he was still quite disdainful. Jiang Tian is good at fighting. He can also control red fire, refine pills, and so on. But when it comes to finance, I'm afraid he knows nothing. When she drove over, she was also secretly angry. Aren't you very active in Lingnan? You have connections with both the black and white. If you want to get rid of the Nie, Sun, and Chen families, you can just go to their door. However, the moment she walked into the office, she was stunned. With a face full of disbelief, she said, Chen Jinming, why are you here? In her mind, Chen Jinming was a godlike existence. He was one of the few financial talents in Wuxia who had made a name for himself on Wall Street. It could be said that Chen Jinming's operation of shorting subprime loans had made him famous in the international financial market. Haha, isn't this Bangxia? She's also a great beauty. Your Jiang family has so many beauties. This trip was not in vain, not in vain. Chen Jinming was analyzing the information of several companies with Jiang Tian. He turned his head and said with a smile. Jiang Bengxia was like a fan who had seen her idol. She stepped forward and bowed repeatedly. With a face full of reverence, she said, Mr. Chen, your operation last year, shorting subprime loans in the United States, was simply a stroke of genius. I admire you to death. How did you discover their repayment crisis at that time? After all, this is not just a company, but the mortgage of countless families in the United States. The data is so huge that it can't be finished even after a few years. Haha, I've never told anyone about this, but I can't hide it in front of Jiang Tian. Chen Jinming shook his head helplessly and sighed. Jiang Tian called me last May to tell me about the problem of subprime loans in the United States. I studied it in depth, and then I shorted it. What? It's Jiang Tian who told you? Jiang Bengxia felt that her brain was not enough. She looked at Jiang Tian's handsome face in disbelief. Jiang Tian actually knows about finance. And it's the financial market in the United States. He was the one who made Chen Jinming earn hundreds of millions of dollars in real money. This is too incredible. Jiang Bengxia's heart was set off stormy waves. Her eyes were bursting with admiration. She had completely forgotten that a few minutes ago, Jiang Tian was still a useless financial idiot in her mind. Bengxia, come back. In the future, you will be in charge of the Jiang family's finance. How about it? Jiang Tian said lightly. Jiang Bengxia's face stiffened. She looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. Then tears seeped out of her eyes little by little. After the old man's birthday banquet, Gu Siyu, who had always thought highly of her, banished her to the cold palace and transferred her directly to the administrative department. She was made a basic clerk, and her job was nothing more than bookbinding and printing. She was unable to display her skills. She knew that this was because of Jiang Tian. It could be said that in the Jiang family, anyone who dared to offend Jiang Tian would become the target of public criticism. In fact, after seeing Jiang Tian's monstrous authority and huge network at the birthday banquet, and her failure in the workplace, Jiang Bengxia also wanted to express goodwill to Jiang Tian, and return to the Medicine King Group to seek a position. However, her brother, Jiang Tian, was directly sentenced to prison. It was obvious that Jiang Tian was ruthless and ruthless. Jiang Bengxia had repeatedly offended Jiang Tian. She was too ashamed to look for Jiang Tian. She also did not believe that Jiang Tian would put her in an important position. But now, Jiang Tian's magnanimity and generosity made her nose sour. Her eyes were slightly red. She said in a trembling voice, Jiang Tian, why do you want to put me in an important position? You've never harmed the interests of the Jiang family. You're not a bad person. You still have some ability. Is this enough? Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Jiang Tian had once killed Hong Tianzhao and Mo Haoxiong, but he left in a huff. He did not scheme for their worldly assets. Of course, this was also because Jiang Tian did not kill them all. Even if he wanted to scheme for their assets, he still needed to go one step further. Even for the tens of billions of assets of the Wei family in Yangqing City, Jiang Tian let Hong Yi and the others take charge of distributing them to the major forces. But now that Jiang Tian had returned to the Jiang family, he had no choice but to consider the development of the Jiang family. Since he had to kill along the way, why not add in the plundering? Those ownerless assets would rot there and benefit others if he did not want them. Why not take them into his own pocket? This required a financial genius like Jiang Bengxia to help him launder these assets through legal means. Jiang Tian, no patriarch, I will definitely work hard in the future and work my heart out for the Jiang family. Jiang Bengxia's tears rolled down her cheeks as she gave a deep bow and spoke with passion. Chen Jinming smiled at Jiang Tian, then turned his head and asked, Bengxia, what do you think of the Medicine King Group stock price? Chapter 243. The stock price of Medicine King Group fell on June 3rd. I searched the news before and after that day, and found that in Hong Kong, the media exposed the news that Grandpa was seriously ill and Jiang Qingfeng had intercepted the profits of Xixiao Pharmaceutical Company. Jiang Bengxia knew that Chen Jinming wanted to test her, and she was also prepared. She immediately smiled and said, Because all the patent holders of Medicine King Group are Grandpa, and Grandpa is also the representative of the scientific research strength of Medicine King Group. These two pieces of news should be the direct cause of the fall of Medicine King Group's stock price. Continue. Analyze the behind-the-scenes manipulator. Can you figure it out? Chen Zhiming nodded approvingly. In Hong Kong, the media that first published this news is Apple Daily, which belongs to First Media Group. Jiang Bengxia smiled and said, and in First Media Group, the Zhonghai Fund under the Nie family owns 15% of the shares. I believe that the Nie family and First Media Group are acting in concert, or even the Nie family is the behind-the-scenes manipulator. Very good. According to the trading volume these days, as well as the outflow and inflow of funds, the operating style, and so on, can you judge the other party's trading team? Chen Zhiming asked. I can't tell. Jiang Bengxia was slightly stunned, then shook her head and said, well, you can see so much. You're already good. Welcome to join our team and fight side by side. Chen Zhiming nodded. Jiang Bengxia suddenly burst into cheers and almost jumped up. How lucky it was to be able to work under Chen Zhiming. It could be said that it was the pride of her life. Well now, let's take a look at the other party's trading style. Chen Zhiming said slowly, since June 3rd, 3 consecutive guillotines have broken the average of 5 days in 10 days. At the same time, with the unfavorable analysis of financial reports by researchers and negative media news, the net outflow of large companies has exceeded 6% every day. With such a style, who can you think of? With a hint, we might as well narrow the target to the financial trading team in Hong Kong. David Fong. In the seat, a blonde lady with blue eyes adjusted her gold-rimmed glasses and said calmly, Fong Zhambua. Hearing this name, Jiang Bengxia was shocked and her pretty face turned as pale as paper. Yes, it's him. Seeing Chen Zhiming nod, Jiang Bengxia's delicate body trembled slightly. Her heart was cold, as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Fong Zhambua should be cooperating with the Nie family as an independent third party. Chen Zhiming said, this person is very conservative or rather very cunning. He usually won't use his own company's capital to short the stock. He should only be supporting it as an extraterrestrial brain, using the funds of the 3 great families of Jinling. Then, according to our calculations, the stocks shorted over the past few days have already exceeded the 8 billion in liquid funds held by the 3 big families. They should have used their shares as collateral for margin financing. Therefore, our response strategy should be to take advantage of the situation and lure the snake out of its hole. Then, we will strike where it hurts the most. At this moment, Chen Zhiming suddenly stood up and straightened his body. His eyes glowed brightly like a peerless treasured sword that had just been unsheathed. The first stage is to take advantage of the situation and lure the snake out of its hole. In the process of them suppressing the stock price of Medicine King Group, they can absorb chips at a low price and control more shares. They can even achieve absolute control. Chen Zhiming's eyes were filled with murderous intent. It was as if he had turned from a peaceful and lazy young man into a financial giant with great power in his hands. In the second stage, hit the snake's weak spot and kill it in one strike. Release the good news and make the stock price of Medicine King Group rise continuously. In this way, the 3 big families will not be able to repay their margin financing and securities lending. They are very likely to go bankrupt. Of course, if we have 50 billion in liquid funds now, if we can only do this, it will be too easy for them. We have to go one step further and take drastic measures. Then in the third stage, we will short and absorb the listed companies controlled by the Nie family and achieve reverse control. We have a lot of funds, which is a natural advantage. We can short and suppress the stock price of the 3 big families. When their stock price falls, the value of the shares mortgaged to the financial institutions will be lower. Basically, we can guarantee that they will go bankrupt. At this time, we will buy back these shares from the financial institutions and achieve the merger of the 3 listed companies. Everything will be settled. This operation plan is too domineering. He is indeed a financial tycoon back from Wall Street. Jiang Bengxia's face was full of reverence. Chen Zhiming did not only talk about the response strategy, but also accompanied it with detailed actuarial calculations and analysis. It could be said that Feng Zhangbua's trading model was basically transparent to him. But, Jiang Tian, the first step is not a problem. We have money and my team. A trace of worry appeared on Chen Jinming's face at this time. He said lightly, but the second stage, which is the implementation of raising the stock price of Medicine King Group, needs real ability. Of course, we can use funds to forcefully pull it up, but the third stage of suppressing and acquiring the stock price of the 3 listed companies will be a little difficult. I need good news. And this good news must be realized. The Medicine King Group has to rise at least 5 times in a row. The good news is definitely enough. Jiang Tian said lightly. First of all, the old man's illness has been cured. It's just that I have strictly blocked the news before. He has returned to the Medicine King Group's laboratory to preside over the product development. Is that enough? Chen Jinming was stunned. Then he grinned and pointed at Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian, you are so cunning. You have already calculated this day, right? This guy is simply a monster. Seeing Jiang Tian's leisurely smile, Jiang Bengxia understood at this time. It turned out that the news of Grandpa's recovery was strictly guarded by Jiang Tian. He was waiting for it here. Chen Jinming frowned and thought for a moment. If this news is released, the stock price of Medicine King Group can rise to the upper limit. The Zhao Pharmaceutical Company of Linzhou, the patent holder and manufacturer of the muscle tonifying cream, and the Medicine King Group cross-shareholding, Jiang Tian said lightly. It can bring 2 to the upper limit. Chen Jinming blurted out. The Zhao Pharmaceutical Company's financial report for the first half of this year had achieved a profit of 1 billion. As long as the cross-shareholding plan was fair, it would be a cash cow for the Medicine King Group. It was a huge benefit. The last one, Professor Huang Zhihui, the director of the Fersky Laboratory, has applied for the Nobel Prize and is expected to win. Jiang Tian sipped his tea comfortably and said lightly. In addition, there are the release of 5 new drugs, as well as about 20 billion orders from the Ministry of Health and the military. Damn, that's a killer move. Jiang Tian, with this news, the stock price can rise to the upper limit 10 times. Chen Jinming hammered Jiang Tian's fist heavily and said excitedly, this time, it's going to be a robbery. The next day, the news that the founder of the Medicine King Group, Jiang Chongqing, was seriously ill was released in Wuxia's major media. At the same time, White Knight Company published a research report in Hong Kong's Apple Daily, claiming that Jiang Chongqing's serious illness would further weaken the Medicine King Group's originally weak research and development ability. They also suspected that the management led by Jiang Qingfeng was suspected of falsifying financial records and intercepting profits. Immediately, the capital market was in an uproar, and many financial media eagerly paid attention and reported. You must know that Jiang Chongqing is the soul of the Medicine King Group, and the main pillar of the research department. We can speculate that if Jiang Chongqing dies of illness, the research department will be even weaker. You must know that the Medicine King Group has not applied for any patents in the past 3 years, and the annual disposable profit of the research expenses is lower than the industry average. Professor Feng Zhangbu, who was famous in Wuxia, commented on the program, Finance Talk Every Day on Zhonghai TV station. There were also reporters from Jinling City News, Lang Finance, New Finance, and Fortune magazine. Yes, this is one disaster after another for the Medicine King Group. Moreover, the management of the Medicine King Group has been changing frequently. The sustainability and effectiveness of the company's strategy will be severely tested. As a guest, Xia Miao, who was wearing a handsome suit, spoke with confidence and went straight to the point. Then, Mr. Nie, what do you think of the Medicine King Group's current business strategy? The host asked with a smile. To be honest, I don't understand the strategic intentions of the Medicine King Group now. Xia Miao shrugged and said with a frown, I think the Medicine King Group has set up a real estate company and spent 1 billion to buy the Fulong Mountain land. This is a diversification move that abandons the main business. The failure rate of diversification is very high, and there is almost no precedent of success in the world. I am pessimistic and conservative about the future performance of the Medicine King Group. My view is the same as Mr. Xia's. Feng Zhambua said with the air of a scholar. I still want to advise the management of the Medicine King Group through the media. They must focus on the main business and not blindly get involved in other fields that they are unfamiliar with. Otherwise, they will be doomed eternally. However, I also know that the real estate industry in Wuxia is very profitable. I am afraid the Medicine King Group will not listen to my advice. After all, I am just a penniless little professor. His humorous words drew a round of applause from the host and the audience. But Ms. Zhang Wanqing seems to be very capable. How could she make such a low-level mistake? The host asked with a smile. The magazine reporter next to him smiled and said, Why is it impossible? She is blinded by greed. It is common for management to abandon the main business for short-term benefits. In fact, since Zhang Wanqing returned to the Medicine King Group, she has been making a lot of bad moves. Do you know that she has a son called Jiang Tian? He is only a third-rate undergraduate, but he is teaching at the Jinling Pharmaceutical University as a visiting professor. Isn't she using the shareholders' money to gild her own son? I heard that he also presided over the preparation of a laboratory. The laboratory costs 100 million yuan. Isn't it a waste to give it to such an ignorant and incompetent person? I heard that this Jiang Tian is extremely ignorant and incompetent, but he is very good at picking up girls. He even had a scandal with the superstar Li Huiyan. He also likes underground car racing and once injured people in a downtown area. The magazine editor followed up with some gossip about Jiang Tian. A group of people laughed and scolded in the program, and the atmosphere of the live broadcast was heated up. Following the broadcast of the program, the stock price of the Medicine King Group plummeted by 8% that afternoon. Feng Zhambua was famous and authoritative in the financial industry. He was a great contributor to the defeat of Soros, and could be said to be one of the most authoritative figures in the financial industry. If he said so, who would not believe him? What drove all the shareholders crazy was that when the market opened at 9:30, the Medicine King Group's stock price fell to the limit. After half an hour, the board finally opened. It rose by 2 points, but it only lasted for half an hour before it fell again. The shareholders wanted to cry, but had no tears. It was over. They were trapped. They couldn't escape even if they wanted to. This was worse than PetroChina. It's very strange. Why would there be funds being absorbed? Isn't the momentum enough? After the close of the day, in the trading room on the 12th floor of the Golf Hotel, Professor Fong leaned lazily on the leather swivel chair and drank the fragrant Blue Mountain coffee. He stared at the LCD screen and muttered, It seems that the transaction volume is less than 100 million. It should only be a few large individual investors. Are they stupid? Buying at this time, aren't they courting death? Xia Miao spoke with disdain. Tomorrow, we'll continue to smash the board and put in a few more heavy ingredients. Professor Fong rose to his feet and said coldly. The next day, the Tianwei Pharmaceutical Company held a press conference and sent a letter to the Lingnan Medical Products Agency, claiming that Jiang Chongding of the Medicine King Corporation was suspected of plagiarizing the patents of the Dangshan Wuji pill and Angang Niuhuang pill. Tianwei Pharmaceutical was one of the top 3 Chinese medicine companies in Wuxia. The Chun family had a long history, and its founder was an imperial physician of the Qing dynasty. The current leader of Tianwei Pharmaceutical, Chen Junbin, was already in his 80s. He used to be a member of the Red Wall Imperial Physician Hall and the vice chairman of the Chinese Medicine Association in Wuxia. He was famous in the field of Chinese medicine and was superior to Jiang Chongding in terms of seniority and academic status. Jiang Chongding used to be my student. 30 years ago, I went to Jinling for training. At that time, Jiang Chongding was my teaching assistant. On the TV screen, in the financial program's live broadcast room, Chen Junbin had a head full of white hair and a white beard, looking like an old pedant. He worships me a lot, and also likes to discuss medical and pharmaceutical knowledge with me when I'm not teaching. I really like and appreciate this young man who is dedicated to the development of Chinese medicine. Therefore, I told him the 8 prescriptions that I have developed. At that time, everyone's awareness of intellectual property was still weak, so I didn't think too much about it. But who would have thought that Jiang Chongjing would register the patents of these prescriptions a few years later? That means that Jiang Chongjing is actually your junior. The host shook his head regretfully and said, if that's the case, then Jiang Chongjing is plagiarizing your work. What a pity. Actually, Mr. Jiang is quite famous in the academic circle. I didn't expect that he would do such a thing. A guest sneered. What's impossible about that? The Medicine King Group can sell the medicine at such a high price. It can be said that they're insane. If the upper beam isn't straight, the lower beam will be crooked. It can be said that the Medicine King Group is a company without any social ethics. The host smiled and said, Old Chen, many people are calling the hotline at this time to denounce the Medicine King Group's plagiarism. What do you think? I don't know if Chongjing can watch this program, but I still want to say something to him. Chen Junbin said in a low voice, if everyone only wants to plagiarize and doesn't care about intellectual property rights, then how will we promote Chinese medicine in the future? Who will do research and develop new drugs? I think that old Chen, you should pursue the legal responsibility of the Medicine King Group. A guest from the legal circle suggested. Chen Junbin smiled and said, he probably didn't think so much at that time. We all want to promote Chinese medicine, but it's difficult to develop new drugs. I can also understand that feeling. But our Tianwei pharmaceutical company still has legal means. As long as they stop producing this medicine, I won't pursue the matter. Haha, old Chen, you're really magnanimous. Then Professor Fang, what do you think? The host looked at Fang Zhanbua. Fang Zhanbua frowned and said, I personally hate this kind of thing. It can be said that Huaxia's intellectual property rights protection still has a long way to go. It can't be compared to the United States. But since old Chen is willing to let them go, then so be it. But if the situation changes and the other party still doesn't stop their plagiarism, then we can only resort to the law. Actually, I have many friends in the legal circle, and I believe that the Medicine King Group won't be able to withstand our legal team. They'll definitely lose this case. But then again, the reason why I invited old Chen to do this program is because I saw a lot of chaos in the Chinese medicine industry. I personally won't be lenient with such actions that infringe on the legal rights of other companies and the interests of consumers and shareholders. Some media still suspect that Jiang Chongjing plagiarized. I want to ask, can Jiang Chongjing's academic standards be compared to old Chen's? To put it bluntly, he's just old Chen's disciple. How can old Chen plagiarize him? He must have plagiarized old Chen. The Fersky Laboratory is managed by an ignorant and incompetent Jiang Tian, and a third-rate scholar Huang Zhihui, who hasn't even published a few papers. From this, we can see the research and development capabilities of the Medicine King Group. In the control room, if Yi Ziwei, Jiang Lin, and Jiang Bengxia hadn't heard from Jiang Tian that the other party might use the media to wage a war, they would have been furious. It was obviously Chen Junbin who had stolen the old man's patent, but he still had the attitude of, if you stop production, I'll let you go. It was simply too infuriating. Fang Zhanbua's words were also a threat, and he wanted to use this opportunity to declare that if you don't stop production, the legal team of White Knight will play with you to the end. This was no longer theft, but outright robbery. In the eyes of outsiders, this interview was a fatal blow to the Medicine King Group that was in danger. Not only did it deal a blow to Jiang Chongjing and the Medicine King Group, but it also further established the image of a generous scholar for Chen Junbin. After the TV broadcast, newspapers and magazines followed. Then a group of financial media people spoke out again, expressing their support for Chen Junbin and the Tianwei Group, and condemning the Medicine King Group and Jiang Chongjing. Wu Bo, a well-known financial media person and the author of the book, The Big Break, said, this kind of tolerance and generosity appeared in a Chinese medicine guru. And it is also a reflection of the prosperity of Chinese medicine. I believe that the Chinese medicine industry will definitely create a new glory in such a united and harmonious atmosphere. Lu Zhong, an economics professor from Shuimu University, who had always been known for his poisonous tongue, said, if tolerance and generosity were used in the protection of intellectual property rights, I'm afraid that those companies dedicated to innovation and research would have been finished long ago. If it's true, then we must strictly investigate. If we don't make the other party pay, how can we make an example of the industry? The Medicine King Group and Jiang Chongging are the scum of the industry. Chen Junbin and the Tianwei Group represent the industry? Don't be generous with the generosity of others. Someone also said, we can't just listen to Chen Junbin's side of the story. We should interview Jiang Chongging, right? But as soon as these words came out, 10,000 feet immediately stomped over, cursing the speaker to the point that he couldn't even raise his head. Haha, that's ridiculous. Who is Chen Junbin? He's the Red Wall Imperial Physician and the Vice President of the Chinese Medicine Association. In terms of seniority, Jiang Chongging is his student, and he was his teaching assistant in the past. That's right. The Tianwei Group is ranked in the top 3 in the country, and their scientific research is 10,000 times stronger than the Medicine King Group. How can the Tianwei Group plagiarize their work? It's definitely the Medicine King Group. Jiang Chongging, that old fart, should die to appease the world. For a time, with the spread of this program, all kinds of discussions were rampant. Everyone agreed that Jiang Chongging and the Medicine King Group had plagiarized the patent and were the black sheep of the Chinese medicine industry. That night, in a private clubhouse, Nie Mingyuan held a very secret gathering. The scale of this gathering was no less than the high-level gatherings of the Banana Club. Those present were basically tycoons and young talents with a net worth of hundreds of millions or even billions. Since he had already beheaded Jiang Chongging, he might as well spread the news and spread the news, making the Jiang family even more isolated and helpless. Chapter 245. Congratulations, young Master Nie. This time, the Jiang family and the Medicine King Group have been utterly defeated. Xiao Miao stood up and applauded with a smile. It's a stroke of genius. They even invited Fang Zhanbua. How can a country bumpkin like Jiang Tian withstand it? This sniping battle against the Medicine King Group will go down in history. It's a classic case. Everyone stood up and applauded enthusiastically. Flattery flowed like a tide, and the flattery was colorful. I have to admit that Jiang Tian is a talent. Ever since the reform of Jinling, no one has been as open as him. Nie Mingyuan waved his hand and sat down. With a gloomy face he sneered. Unfortunately, he knows nothing about finance and business. I heard that it's hard for him to fight, right? Aren't you afraid, young Master Nie? Mu Yinqing said with a smile. I'm waiting for him to kill me. Nie Mingyuan was as confident as Mr. Zhuge. He sneered and said, business has its rules. If he fights because of a business dispute, the Jiang family will be doomed eternally. That's banditry. Who dares to cooperate with the Jiang family? Moreover, can the government just sit back and do nothing? Yes, young Master Nie is scheming. He wants you to know that I'm going to kill you, but you can't fight back. Among the seats, a black-bellied middle-aged man made a comment. Nie Mingyuan smiled proudly and glanced at everyone. Everyone, I'm in the open, but you're in the dark. If you follow my Nie family and empty the Jiang family, you'll make money like water. The Jiang family can't do anything to you, he added. The Nie family will take the bullet. Let's make money together. Yes, let's empty the Medicine King Group together. We'll make a fortune. Thank you, young Master Nie, for giving us a chance to make a fortune. It's such an obvious opportunity. If we don't seize it, we'll be blind. To young Master Nie, empty the Medicine King Group. Many rich young masters raised their glasses and responded together. They were in high spirits and celebrated together. Sister Mengyao, do you want to empty the Medicine King Group together? My company also has a few million in idle funds. Tang Bao couldn't hold back and said excitedly. What did you say? Mengyao looked at Lin Yi with a confused face, her mind elsewhere. Sister Yao Yao, what are you thinking about? I said that we should follow young Master Nie and short the Medicine King Corporation. Tang Bao said gloomily. I have to think about it. Mingyao's eyes flashed as she sighed deeply in her heart. Jiang Tian is a genius to be able to suppress Suruwacheng. But business is business. It's a completely different logic. How can he compare to Nie Mingyuan, who just returned from studying at the Ivy League Business School? So what if Jiang Tian can fight? Nie Mingyuan is still better. Tizke, this move is simply. Tang Bao gazed with adoration and fascination at Nie Mingyuan, who was chatting happily with numerous wealthy people. And she was like a fan that had seen her idol. He felt that compared to him, Jiang Tian was like a country bumpkin. From the looks of it, the Jiang clan is really finished this time. Jiang Tian may have some skills, but he doesn't know that showing off his abilities means that the strong are easily defeated. How can he beat Nie Mingyuan in a financial battle? Mu Yinqing lowered her head and sipped her tea, hiding the shock Nie Mingyuan brought to her. She sighed regretfully in her heart. From that day onwards, Zhang Wanqing and Yi Ziwei's phones rang nonstop. Countless people were asking about the situation. Suppliers were asking for the money they owed, pharmacies and medicine trading companies wanted to return their goods, and partners wanted to terminate their partnership. What was even scarier was that the next day after the show, Medicine King Corporation's stock price plummeted again. That day, a shareholder jumped to his death from the roof of a securities company. He had already lost 30%. Because of the leveraged trade, his position was breached and he owed the securities company more than 3 million. The capital market was in an uproar after the news broke out. Many people watched as the stock price plummeted, but they couldn't sell it. They were so anxious that they jumped up and down, gritting their teeth. How could I be so blind? I actually bought Medicine King Corporation's stock. Damn it. Jiang Chongqing, give me back my hard-earned money. Countless people beat their chests and stamped their feet. At this time, everyone in the Jiang family was in a state of panic and fear. A dark cloud loomed over them. In order to ensure the perfect implementation of the financial attack, Jiang Tian controlled the insiders to be Yi Ziwei, Jiang Lin, Jiang Bangxia, and the trading team. Even his mother didn't know. It's so annoying. Are these people mad dogs? How could they bite our Medicine King Corporation like this? Jiang Yangming, who saw the show, was so angry that he slammed the table. He only hated that he had resigned and couldn't fight with the other party. Fuck this old bastard, he's so shameless. That night, Jiang Chao and several companions were drinking in a bar. When they saw the media report, they were so angry that they smashed 3 bottles. Coincidentally, at that time, several people were discussing the dispute between Tianwei Medicine King Corporation and Medicine King Corporation. In their words, they humiliated the Medicine King Corporation. Jiang Chao was angry and fought with the other party. Then a fight broke out, and the police arrested both sides. Zhang Wanqing and Jiang Zhixing were also full of unspeakable grievances and anger at this time. But at the same time they felt small and insignificant. They were in the Chinese medicine business because of their enthusiasm and naivety. They thought that they could stand aloof from the world and have nothing to fear as long as they ran their business as well. But at this time, they had encountered a reality that they couldn't resist. Only then did they realize the cruel law of the jungle. We should have persuaded the old man to sue Qin Junbin. We should have made the first move. Now we're in a passive position. Zhang Wanqing sighed. Even if the Medicine King Corporation had the patent, they could denounce it or sue it directly. Coincidentally, Chen Junbin was the old man's tutor when he was in college. Later on, he had a lot of academic contact with the old man. Chen Junbin could have taken out an old manuscript and said that Jiang Chongqing had gone to register the patent after reading his manuscript. Then this matter would have been settled. Feng Zhanbua, who was proficient in this field, saw the opportunity to create hype. It could be said that while suppressing the Medicine King Corporation and snatching the shares, it could also build momentum for Tianwei Medicine and the herbal group. In the prison, Jiang Qingfeng, whose hair was shaved short, was watching the news on TV. Suddenly he froze. Then his face changed drastically. His hand trembled, and the bread fell into the bowl, splashing juice all over his face. He quickly got up and found an instructor and begged, "Sorry to trouble the government. I want to make a call. I want to see Jiang Tian." "Go back. Let me out. I want to see Jiang Tian. Our family business is finished." Jiang Qingfeng cried as he was dragged back by several instructors. 2 days later, the Jiang family couldn't hold back anymore. In the chairman's office of the Medicine King Corporation, Jiang Shorin and his wife, Jiang Yangming and his wife, eldest aunt's family, and youngest aunt's family surrounded Zhang Wanqing. "Where's Jiang Tian?" Jiang Shoren asked nervously. He went out early in the morning. He's not at home, the company, or the lab, Zhang Wanqing said. Where did he go? We have to hold a press conference and file a lawsuit. The company's share price has fallen so much that we may lose control of the company. Jiang Shoren looked serious as if he was facing a great enemy. Yes, those patented formulas are ours. How can we let Chen Junbin talk nonsense? Zhang Wanqing's aunt looked angry. Doesn't Jiang Tian know a lot of big shots? Why didn't any of them show up at this time? Zhang Wanqing said angrily. Are none of his friends reliable? If this goes on, the Jiang family will be finished. Everyone was talking and making suggestions. It was very noisy. Jiang Weiner pulled Zhang Wanqing's sleeve and cried. Auntie, is Grandpa a bad guy? Why do my classmates say he's a thief? It added to the chaos and annoyance. Jiang Tian said not to let us have any response. Zhang Wanqing frowned. What is he thinking? Zhang Wanqing's aunt was very anxious. If he doesn't let us have a response, we can't even find someone to discuss it with. The Jiang family was very anxious. They were worried, angry, and trying to do everything they could to save the Yawang group. Perhaps they were more or less selfish, and also had the indifference and vanity of the members of a big family. However, different from his previous life, Jiang Tian's return gave them hope for the rise of the Jiang family. Now they were united in the general direction of protecting the Yawang group. Let me ask him. Zhang Wanqing couldn't bear it anymore. She called Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian, you said not to care about the company's share price, not to care about the media's comments, and not to refute the rumors. But now the company's share price has fallen by 40%. It's not a big deal for the paper wealth to shrink, but I'm worried that there are people behind the scenes who are maliciously shorting the company and trying to control the shares of the Yawang group. Mom, don't worry. Wait a little longer, and we will fight back. All the people behind the scenes will be finished. Jiang Tian's tone was very calm, but a trace of gloominess flashed in his eyes. In his previous life, Chen Junbin had also joined forces with the three big families of Jinling to take advantage of the situation. But it was not as vicious, and the attack was not as fierce. But in this life, with the help of Feng Zhanbua, the extraterrestrial brain, they could easily destroy the Medicine King group, even at the cost of destroying the old master's reputation and personality to achieve their own goals. From this, one could see the viciousness and coldness of his intentions. Jiang Tian was really angry. These people deserve to die. On this day, the share price of the Yawang group fell again, and it had fallen by almost 50%. After the market was closed, Jiang Tian called for a meeting with Chen Jinming, Yi Ziwei, Jiang Lin, and Jiang Bengxia. I want to know how much bargaining chips we have now. Jiang Tian asked calmly. We already control 51% of the shares in circulation, and at a super low price. With only 10 billion, we can control the shares with a market value of 20 billion. Thank you to Feng Zhanbua and the others. Chen Jinming twisted his sore neck, took a sip of black coffee, and pursed his lips into a smile. The logistics work in the trading room was very good. This guy's shirt was white and neat, but his eyes were bloodshot, and the corners of his mouth were full of blisters. In the past week, Chen Jinming had barely slept. To not cause the share price to rise and fluctuate, quietly collecting bargaining chips was also a skill. He had at least used a dozen different methods to collect chips. What do you think is the situation of the opponent now? Jiang Tian asked. They have used up all their securities, and they have used up all their bullets. Chen Jinming said calmly, half an hour before the market closed, we put up a 20 million order, which caused the share price to rise by 2 points. It took them half an hour to hit the limit down. They will not hold back. They are very confident that the Yawang group will not have a chance to make a comeback. If there is no good news, the share price will continue to fall. In the next week, they will finish collecting bargaining chips, take control of the shares, hold a board meeting, and kick the Jiang family out. So, is it time to start the counterattack? Jiang Tian's calm and cold eyes swept across the room as he said coldly. Chapter 246. Let's do it. We can attack them now. Chen Jinming's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He smiled. There are very few shares in the market now, less than 40%. Any good news will bring it to the upper limit. Jiang Tian patted Chen Zhiming's shoulder and said calmly, "All right, have a good sleep tonight and recharge your energy. Tomorrow we will begin the counterattack." Out of the trading room, Jiang Tian called Tang Hongtu. "Mr. Tang, I hope you can attend our new product launch tomorrow." "Don't worry, not only will I be there, but a deputy minister will be there as well." Tang Hongtu smiled. "We've prepared a 10 billion purchase contract." "Thank you. Actually, I should be the one thanking you." Tang Hongtu smiled. "Just the rising dragon meridian changing pill will greatly improve a soldier's physique and achieve a significant increase in combat power. It's just that these pills are too expensive and can only be used by the Ace Special Forces. If the price is lower, it'll be even better. However, the healing pills and antidotes can be promoted to the whole army. Master Kong, you've achieved a historical leap in the military's logistics and medical standards. You flatter me. Happy working with you." Jiang Tian smiled lightly and hung up the phone. Then Jiang Tian called Secretary Yu of the Political and Law Committee. He said lightly, "Secretary Yu, it's time to close the net." "Yes, Mr. Jiang, I've been waiting for this day for a long time." Secretary Yu said excitedly. When Jiang Tian returned to the villa, he heard from his mother that the old man was so angry that his blood pressure was high. However, she was worried that it would affect the overall situation, so she didn't want to tell Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian quickly drove to Jiangzhuang with his parents. Ever since the Spring Festival, the old man had been living in Jiangzhuang, leaving everything to Jiang Tian's family. He didn't care about worldly affairs and enjoyed his old age. Who would have thought that the wind wouldn't stop even if the tree wanted to be quiet? A monstrous wave came crashing down on them. The old man had already fallen asleep. His breathing was heavy, but his brows were tightly knitted. He didn't sleep well. Fortunately, the old man had been taking the 9 Revolutions Great Recovery pill these days. His body was strong and healthy. At present he was just a little dizzy and was fine. Without waking the old man up, Jiang Tian set up a stretcher beside the old man's feet and rested for the night. The old man was a light sleeper, not to mention that there was a big stone weighing on his heart. At 6 o'clock the next day, the old man woke up at dawn. He stared blankly at the ceiling for 3 minutes before sitting up. Everything that had happened in the past few days was like a nightmare to him. "Tian, are you back?" Seeing that Jiang Tian was reading a book at the side, he held Jiang Tian's hand and sighed. He blamed himself and said, "Little Tian, you were right. I'm old and confused. I should have listened to you back then. I really didn't expect Chen Junbin to be so disrespectful. I've harmed the Medicine King group and dragged everyone down with me. Now what is done cannot be undone. Grandpa, don't blame yourself. Don't worry, I've already calculated everything. The Medicine King group will survive." Jiang Tian smiled and said, "But are you willing to attend the Medicine King group's new product launch tomorrow?" "What product?" asked the old man. Jiang Tian handed over a stack of documents. There were formulas, patents, clinical trial reports, production licenses, and so on. "Prepare the car and send me to Jinling for the launch." After reading the last page, the old man stood up shakily, but his eyes were shining brightly. Zhang Wanqing wanted to help him, but was pushed away by him. "I'm not old. I can do it." He put on the red tang suit that was hanging at the door and buttoned it up meticulously. He was like an old general who had returned to the field and was ready to go to battle again, with a murderous aura that was ready to cut off all means of retreat. At 9 o'clock that day, Feng Zhanbua, who had eaten a nutritious breakfast, lazily walked into the trading room of the Gulf Hotel. "Professor Feng, you're amazing." Suddenly, a burst of warm applause sounded. Nie Zhonghai and Nie Mingyuan of the Nie family, Sun Lingyun, the head of the Sun family, Chen Donglin, the CEO of the Baichao Group, Chen Junbin, the founder of Tianwei Pharmaceutical in Yanjing, and many other leaders of private funds, CEOs and directors of large companies all clapped and cheered. "Mr. Feng, we've won this battle. It's an easy victory." "Thank you, Professor Feng." They only felt that Feng Zhanbua was like a god these days. How the Medicine King Group's stock price went was completely up to him. "You're welcome, everyone. Feng Zhambua gestured for everyone to quiet down and said politely, I can't do without everyone's support and joint efforts. He smirked and contemptuously said, I've also heard of Jiang Tian. He's a strange man. But here, he pointed to his forehead and said, this place doesn't seem to work. Isn't that so? Xia Miao sneered in disdain. Professor Feng, you're killing without shedding a drop of blood. Feng Zhambua smiled and said, but I still have to congratulate everyone. The Medicine King Group will fall into our pockets in the next 3 days. Everyone can stay and witness this historic moment together. Feng Zhambua sat down behind the desk, and everyone sat in the rest area. The trading was about to begin. Feng Zhambua looked at the Medicine King Group's stock price trend in the past few days and sneered, we've been beheaded several times in a row. This trend has scared everyone away. No matter how capable Jiang Tian is, he won't be able to pull it up. Next, it's time for us to casually grab the chips. But right at this moment, a trader whispered, something's not right. Why did the price soar before trading? Another trader directly opened the official website of the Medicine King Group and couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air. The Medicine King Group has released a good news. The Zhao Pharmaceutical Company in Linzhou City has been acquired. The Zhao Pharmaceutical Company in Linzhou City has made a profit of 1 billion yuan in the first half of the year, which will greatly increase the disposable profits of the Medicine King Group. Furthermore, the acquisition price is only 1 billion yuan. After he said this with a solemn face, the whole room was filled with gasps of cold air. The Zhao Pharmaceutical Company could be said to be a dark horse in the Chinese medicine market for more than a year. It had received an order from the Lingnan military region and attracted a lot of attention from the capital. What? They still want to put up a desperate struggle? Xia Miao was shocked and stared at the Medicine King Group's stock price. It's reached the upper limit before trading. It's reached the upper limit before trading. Everyone exclaimed. Now that it had reached the upper limit, it meant that they had no chance to collect chips from the Medicine King Group all day. Feng Zhambua was also slightly stunned and then said indifferently, the Zhao Pharmaceutical Company and the Jiang family are originally related. What they did is their last struggle. Don't worry. Basically, all the benefits can be redeemed once it reaches the upper limit. They won't be able to afford it tomorrow. Well, Professor Feng is right. At this time, what tricks can the Jiang family play? Nie Zhonghai smiled proudly and calmed down quickly. But more or less, Feng Zhambua and the 3 major families were still a little worried. They held trading meetings all day to discuss all the possibilities. But now, what they could do was very limited. They had already used up all their chips. They could only pray that the Medicine King Group's stock price would not rise tomorrow, or even fall, giving them a chance to collect chips. But who would have thought that the Medicine King Group's acquisition of the Zhao Pharmaceutical Company was just the beginning? Everything that happened next was like a typhoon, destroying them completely. The next day at 8 o'clock, Feng Zhambua arrived at the trading room early. Chen Junbin, Nie Zhonghai and many other Jinling tycoons also arrived. It was obvious that Nie Zhonghai didn't sleep well last night. The dark circles under his eyes were very deep. Sun Lingyun, on the other hand, was smoking a big cigar with furrowed brows, looking a little anxious. Don't be nervous. I believe that the news of the acquisition of Linzhou Pharmaceutical Company has already been digested by the market. Feng Zhambua sipped the fragrant Blue Mountain coffee as if victory was in his hands. He said lightly, also, we have contacted the media yesterday to publish some articles. The stock price of the Medicine King Group should have fallen slightly, or even plummeted today. We can start collecting information now. We have read Professor Feng's article. It's very interesting. Xia Miao said with admiration. It's unrealistic to say that the rapid increase of a company's research ability through acquisition. I believe that the market will also react to it. It's just a few PhD students that I'm guiding. Feng Zhambua smiled faintly. Oh no. The Medicine King Group is holding a press conference with Jiang Changding. It's live streaming. Suddenly, one of the traders cried out in alarm. What? Which TV station? Feng Zhambua was shocked. The 3 biggest video websites in Wuxia. They are using live streaming. The trader said quickly. Show me the video. Yes. The trader quickly enlarged the video on the big screen. Feng Zhanbo looked up. He saw Jiang Changing in a tang suit, surrounded by Yi Ziwei, Zhang Wanqing and many other senior executives. He walked up to the stage in high spirits. He walked with a majestic gait, his head held high and his chest puffed out. His gaze was cold, and he looked like an old lion patrolling his territory. How is this possible? Feng Zhanbo's hand that was holding the coffee cup trembled. He was shocked. Before the Spring Festival, a picture of Jiang Changing wearing an oxygen mask on his sickbed spread all over Wuxia. He should be dying now. How could he be so healthy? Outside the golf hotel, everyone could see a dark cloud that seemed to be able to press down on the roof. It was closing in from all directions. Farther away, the Medicine King Group's building was brightly lit. It was like a sharp sword that pierced the sky, making people's heart palpitate. In the sound of time, everything that happened in Wuxia and in the pharmaceutical industry was approaching. At this time, not only Feng Zhanbo, but also Lin Zhou and Zhao Xueqing's family gathered in front of the TV to watch the live broadcast. What kind of trick is brother-in-law going to play in this press conference? Zhao Qianru asked with a puzzled face. Believe in Jiang Tian. He will definitely make history. Zhao Huqing and his wife looked determined. Their fingers were interlocked. He can do it. He is the strongest man in the world. He will never let us down. Zhao Xueqing murmured proudly. Jinling First Detention Center. Jiang Qingfeng looked at the TV and murmured, Medicine King Group, you must get through this. Jiang Tian, if you can lead the Medicine King Group through this, I will kowtow to you every time I see you. Jiang Chao, who was grounded by his family because of the fight, looked at the TV with a nervous and expectant face. In the city center of Jinling, more than a dozen large and small screens were bought out by the Medicine King Group. Under the screen, someone looked up and felt the humidity in the air and murmured, "It's going to rain." The weather forecast also indicated that there would be a thunderstorm today. Whoosh! Under the big screen, people opened their umbrellas and looked at the screen. They were surprised and said, "What is the Medicine King Group doing?" Chapter 247. Well, this stage style is very novel. Cool colors. Someone exclaimed. In fact, it was not only Jinling City. Yanjing, Zhonghai, Yangcheng, all 70 large and medium-sized cities in Wuxia. More than 2,000 large LCD advertising screens were bought by the Medicine King Group. Just this cost alone was almost 100 million. When Feng Zhanbo, who was in the trading room, heard the news, his face turned serious. He knew that this should be the Medicine King Group's last and fiercest counterattack. It had indeed set off a great wave. At this time, suddenly, a tall figure walked in, and was stopped by a security guard. "What are you doing here? You can't come in." Jiang Tian said lightly, "My name is Jiang Tian, a member of the Jiang family of Jinling City and the Medicine King Group. I want to talk to Professor Feng." Why is he here? Everyone was a bit flustered. They didn't expect that Jiang Tian would come alone at this time. After all, Jiang Tian was also famous in Jinling City. Did he want to kill someone? However, Feng Zhanbo waved his hand calmly and motioned the security guard to make way. Jiang Tian walked in, and his eyes fell on Feng Zhanbo, then on Ye Zhonghai and his son. Finally, his eyes fell on Chen Junbin. He asked lightly, "What do you think?" Facing the unmoved Chen Junbin, Jiang Tian said lightly, "Those prescriptions are all my grandpa's. When he asked you, there were witnesses. Why did you plagiarize and slander him? What do you think?" Chen Junbin's face turned pale at first, and then a bit ferocious. But in a short time, the corners of his mouth curled up. He sneered and said, "Plagiarizing Jiang Changging's prescriptions? You must be mistaken. Since you are Jiang Changging's grandson, you should know that your grandpa calls me Professor Chen. Don't you know who plagiarized whose prescriptions? Haven't I explained it clearly enough?" Feng Zhanbo, who was next to him, burst into laughter as if he was facing a person with raving disorder. "Do you really think I can't do anything to you?" Jiang Tian smiled lightly. "What can you do?" I know you are a martial Dao master from Wuxia and possess extraordinary strength, but this is the capital market. Can you kill me? Fang Zhanbo was so furious that he sneered. You've already registered the patent, so we can't do anything to you. However, Old Chen also has a manuscript. We have already hired experts to appraise it. It was 10 years earlier than you registered the patent. What kind of trouble are you trying to stir up now? You plagiarized the patent and still have the guts to ask for an explanation. I advise you not to play any more tricks. Don't hold any new product launches. That will only ruin Jiang Changing and Yawang Group's reputation. Originally, Jiang Changing had issued an apology and corrected himself. That way, the matter would not have blown up. We believe that evil will always prevail over good. And now, the reaction of the capital market, with the shareholders voting with their feet, has already explained everything. Chen Junbin glanced at Fang Zhanbo. Both of them knew that what they were saying now was to prevent Jiang Tian from having something like a recorder or a camera. Very good. I'm very satisfied with your answer. Jiang Tian smiled, but this smile made everyone feel a fierce murderous aura. He said lightly, as a person, you shouldn't be so ruthless. But this time, I think you are all jackals of the same tribe. You deserve to die. You will regret starting this war for the rest of your life. Then, Jiang Tian turned around and left the trading room. He walked out of the golf hotel and took an umbrella from Jiang Lin. He picked up his phone and said lightly, the launch can start now. Then he got in the car and went straight to Yawang Group. At 8 o'clock sharp, Yawang Group's big conference room, the venue of the new product launch. The media gathered. Ms. Zhang Wanqing, Mr. Jiang, what do you have to say in the face of the public's doubts about Mr. Jiang and Yawang Group? Is there another truth to it? The host asked with a smile. As for the truth, let's talk about the new product. Jiang Changing said lightly. All the doubts and clamor dissipated with the old man's words. Jiang Changing's words seemed to be understated, but they were full of strong confidence and power. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Those reporters who were asked by Fang Zhanbo to look for flaws in Jiang Changing's words felt like they were facing an iron plate. At the same time, they had a bad feeling, just like the dark clouds above the city of Jinling. No one knew what would happen. And what kind of bomb would the Jiang family and Yawang Group throw out? Yi Ziwei is on the stage. The launch of the new product is about to start. These are the new products made by Master Kong himself. What will they be? Tang Xiaozi, Tai Minghuang, and Bai Choufei shouted excitedly in the tea room of Six Dynasties residence. Many of Jiang Tian's allies in Yangcheng, Linzhou, and Donghai were watching the live broadcast. At this time, everyone was staring at the big screen. The stage darkened and only a beam of light shone on Yi Ziwei's body. Boss Yi is so beautiful. She's so beautiful. For some reason, everyone was excited. Whoosh! The big screen behind Yi Ziwei lit up and showed the packaging and effects of the new product. In fact, Yi Ziwei was a bit nervous when the lights came on. She even felt a bit dizzy. A live broadcast for a few new products had never been done before in Wuxia. There should be millions of people watching her right now. She saw her father, Yi Gufeng, smiling at her from the first row. She saw her adoptive mother, Zhang Wanqing, waving her fists. She saw Jiang Zhixing nodding at her. She saw Jiang Tian squinting his eyes and making a victory sign at her. The moment she saw Jiang Tian, she calmed down. She thought to herself, these are all Jiang Tian's hard work. He can invent such a good medicine, so how can I embarrass him? He said that he wants me to be the queen of medicine in Wuxia and the world. The first product is called Detoxification Pill. Under the supervision of Wuxia's Food and Drug Administration and the Ministry of Health, clinical trials have shown that it has a 100% cure rate for all snake venom, drug poisoning, and food poisoning. Strings of data were spat out. Yi Ziwei's face was calm, but her heart was pounding like thunder. When she first saw these statistics, how could she not be shocked to the point of disbelief? Her heart was in turmoil. The price is 1,000 yuan per box. Our company has received a 2 billion yuan order from the military. Also, the medicine has been listed in the Ministry of Health's list of benchmark medicines. The Ministry of Health's order is 5 billion. We will promote it to all major hospitals in the country. Yi Ziwei's voice continued. The big screen showed the video and photos of the contract between the military, the Ministry of Health, and the Medicine King Group. This product was developed by the Fersky laboratory set up by the Medicine King Group and the Jin City Pharmaceutical University. The patent holders are Professor Jiang Chongqing and Professor Huang Zhihui. After introducing the medicine, Yi Ziwei stretched out her hand. She raised her thumb and curled the rest of her fingers. Her slender index finger pointed below the stage, as if she was going to shoot a gun. She pointed her finger at the camera, and then at Fang Zhanbua and the others in front of the big screen in the control room. Zhang Wanqing paused for a moment. At this moment, it was as if the entire world had fallen into a deathly silence. Because of this silence, Fang Zhanbua, Nie Zhanghai, Chen Junbin, and Sun Lingyun suddenly had a bad feeling. It was as if the gate of hell had opened. Chen Junbin, Professor Fang Zhanbua, did we copy this medicine? Yi Ziwei asked coldly. Her voice was as cold as a sword. Now let's begin the introduction of the second product. Yi Ziwei's introduction was rhythmic but calm. It was like a group of tanks gathering on a boundless field, accumulating momentum that could topple mountains and overturn seas bit by bit. What? The small recovery pill has a 97% cure rate for early-stage cancer? 75% cure rate for late-stage cancer? That's unbelievable. Also, the price is too cheap. 10,000 yuan for a course of treatment, and it's cured? At the same time, all the Wuxia netizens in front of their computer screens and big screens in major cities were exclaiming in disbelief. Now it's time to talk about the formula. At this time, Yi Ziwei suddenly stopped the introduction. Sai, why did you stop? Continue the introduction. This medicine is amazing. Immediately, in front of the 3,000 big screens in the country, countless people shouted in confusion. The venue of the press conference, as well as the airspace above all the cities, was completely silent. Today, media reporters have arrived at Mr. Chen Junbin's location. Please accept the media interview. Yi Ziwei said coldly with a threatening look in her eyes. In the control room of the Golf Hotel, Chen Junbin, who was already pale, was startled. He saw a group of reporters swarming in at the door. They all pointed their cameras at him and threw out one heavy question after another. Mr. Chen, what do you think about the new medicine released by the Medicine King Group? Do you still think that the Medicine King Group's research ability is mediocre and that they have no ability to develop new medicines? Do you still think that these new medicines are plagiarized? Chen Junbin's pale and speechless face had already appeared on the big screen. This was a live broadcast. He covered his ashamed face with his hand. Faced with these questions, Chen Junbin was flabbergasted and speechless, unable to answer a single word. Yi Ziwei's voice sounded again. I want to ask him, was this formula also invented by him, Chen Junbin? Yi Ziwei's question was like an invisible spear that led a snowstorm. Everyone looked at Chen Junbin in unison. At this time, everyone was silent. The two new medicines released by the Medicine King Group were enough to prove the formidable research ability of the Medicine King Group. It could even be said that they were epoch-making innovations. Before this, the 8 formulas of the Medicine King Group were patented before Tianwei Pharmaceutical. Why did everyone think that Jiang Chongqing and the Medicine King Group were plagiarized based on Chen Junbin's one-sided statement? Chapter 248. If Jiang Chongqing had only plagiarized, how could he have invented these epoch-making drugs? Friends from the media, please pass the microphones to Mr. Chen Junbin and Mr. Fang Zhanbua. Don't say that Yawang Group didn't give them a chance to speak. Yi Ziwei's voice rang out again. At this time, some media staff had already passed the microphones to Chen Junbin. Seeing this, there were already reporters at the press conference who excitedly said to the camera, "Friends from the audience, the press conference of Yawang Group's new product has undergone an earth-shattering change." Fang Zhanbua was known for his eloquence and sharp words, but at this time, he hesitated and didn't dare to take the microphone. Chen Junbin took the microphone with difficulty. He felt that the microphone was as heavy as a 1,000-pound boulder, and his hand was trembling. Now that the media and the public were paying attention, there would be a public debate. If he didn't take the microphone, it would be obvious that he had a guilty conscience. Seeing that he took the microphone, Yiziwei quickly asked, "Is this formula yours, Chen Junbin? If so, please tell us the formula." Wow. In front of the computer screens and in front of the LCD screens in the city, everyone was in an uproar. This question is simply too tricky and fierce. In the past, when they watched a press conference of a new product, it was always calm and uneventful. It was never as exciting as this. In an instant, it seemed that the atmosphere of the audience was ignited. On the internet, the number of people who watched the video soared rapidly. 1 million, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million. In front of countless LCD screens, more and more people gathered, causing traffic jams. Yiziwei's words were like a death knell. "I'll give you 10 seconds to think. Starting now, 10, 9, 8. Following Yiziwei's countdown, people in front of the LCD screens and in front of the computer screens shouted together with their phones, 10, 9, 8. When Yiziwei counted to 6, countless people on the street and in front of the LCD screens shouted, 6, 5 for. In an instant, it seemed that the whole of Wuxia was in an uproar. Tens of millions of people in the subway, in the neighborhood, in the park paths, in the supermarket, and in the living room at home shouted together. Their voices sounded like the Milky Way descending from the 9 heavens. They were uniform and carried a carnival atmosphere as they shattered the heavens. Near the Golf Hotel, there were 2 LCD billboards reserved by the Medicine King Group. At this time, thousands of people had gathered and were shouting in unison. What was the feeling of thousands of people shouting in unison when the rain was falling? Even the drizzling raindrops were shattered and scattered, and even the cool breeze that blew past became hoarse and powerless. Even the entire Golf Hotel was shaken to the point that it floated weakly in the air, as if it was about to collapse. Many years later, some people would recall this new product launch, and some would slap the table in praise. That Chairman Yi of the Medicine King Group is really too ruthless. At this moment, Chen Junbin seemed to have a premonition of his fate. Holding the microphone, he was on the verge of collapse. Feng Zhanbo only moved his but a little, but he couldn't say a word. At this time, through the big screen, they saw the scene of hundreds of thousands of people shouting in unison under the LCD screens on the streets of 70 major cities across the country. They felt as if they had fallen into a nightmare, as if the gates of hell had been opened. The director of this live broadcast was also hired with a lot of money. He had once directed the Olympic Games. At this moment, he spliced more than 3,000 shots onto the big screen. So, everywhere Feng Zhanbo and Chen Junbin looked, there was a crowd. They were all coldly watching their performance. The people who were counting down together were all crazy shouts in their ears. From their throats, only the sound of swallowing came out, but they couldn't make a meaningful sound. They had once wantonly controlled the media and the public, but only now did they know how terrible the violence of the public could be. This was a force that could destroy everything. 3, 2. Yiziwei was still counting down. 3, 2. Countless people counted down with Yiziwei. 1. Hua. This was the roar of hundreds of thousands of people under 3,000 screens in 70 large and medium-sized cities across the country. If the netizens who didn't know the ins and outs of the situation had turned on the live broadcast at this moment, they would have been so shocked by this roar that they would have fallen to the ground. Yiziwei did not count down the last one. Countless netizens and the public across the country counted for her. Then, Yiziwei waved her hand, and the formula of the small recovery pill appeared on the screen. As if nothing had happened, she talked tirelessly and calmly about the difficult process of developing this new drug. At the live press conference, everyone in the media's observation seats was moved. Their breathing became rapid. On the stage, Yiziwei was enveloped by a layer of light. She was so beautiful that time and space stopped. Her slender and tall body faced the light from the sky. Her eyes were full of compassion, as if she was a god or a fairy. Then Yiziwei began to introduce the next product. Detailed clinical trial data, amazing results, and huge orders. In the end, when the prescription was announced, she stopped again. She looked at Jiang Tian, then looked at the camera. Her eyes seemed to penetrate the screen and land on Chen Junbin and Feng Zhanbua. The press conference site was silent. The entire Jinling city waited quietly. At this time, in the trading room of the Gulf Hotel, Chen Junbin had a bad feeling. Feng Zhanbua was sitting on pins and needles. He looked at the media and reporters vigilantly, trembling. Here it comes again. The camera was pointed at them again. Sure enough, Yi Ziwei shouted again. Chen Junbin, is this formula yours? Say it, and we'll count down together. 10, 9, 8. Ha ha ha, this is so fun. This is the first time I've seen such an interesting product launch. Countless people laughed maniacally and echoed his words. This is a relentless attack, a slap in the face. In the camera, Feng Zhanbua and Chen Junbin's faces had turned green and white as they covered their faces. After another round of wild countdown, Yi Ziwei continued with the release of the next product. The next one is the Rising Dragon Yijing pill, which is custom-made by the military and not for sale to the public. Chen Junbin, did you invent it? One after another, amazing products were launched like rockets, one after another, shocking the world. The Medicine King Group's press conference was also halfway through. All the media and the public were alarmed and paying close attention. The total number of views and online viewers of the online video kept climbing. 40 million, 45 million, 60 million, 70 million. Many scholars, financial media commentators, and observers of the Chinese medicine industry were stunned. It can be said that any of these products released by the Medicine King Group can sweep the world. Someone said with deep emotion. A desperate counterattack. This is not only the Medicine King Group's desperate counterattack, but also the Chinese medicine industry in Wuxia. It will completely change the global medicine landscape. Some practitioners said. The last new product, the Black Jade Intermittent Ointment, which specializes in treating external injuries. Yi Ziwei threw out another bomb. Is it yours? Is it Chen Junbin's? Tell us the formula. In the face of Yi Ziwei's repeated questions, Feng Zhanbua and Chen Junbin held the microphone but didn't say a word. Silence. There was a deathly silence. Such frightening effects, such frightening orders, and such a variety of products were all produced by the Medicine King Group alone. Such shocking products were like nuclear bombs, wantonly bombarding the Chinese medicine market in Wuxia, bombarding the excited hearts of the people, and making the land tremble. It also bombarded the most fragile nerves of Feng Zhanbua and Chen Junbin, making them break out in a cold sweat and pale as paper. Why would such a talented and resourceful Medicine King Group plagiarize Chen Junbin's prescription? If Chen Junbin had the ability to come up with a patent or product that could compete with the other party, he would be able to get 1 billion yuan. Let alone 1 billion yuan, even 100 million yuan order would be impressive. Not to mention such an intensive product launch and such a huge number of orders falling like snowflakes. Even if all the Chinese medicine companies in Wuxia were combined, they would still be no match for the Medicine King Group. Everyone looked at Feng Zhanbua and Chen Junbin's pale faces and shivering bodies through the screen. They felt that even their bones were about to turn cold. Now, I'll announce another piece of good news from Sweden. Yi Ziwei's eyes were cold, and she finally pressed the button to explode the nuclear weapon. Huang Zhihui, director of the Fersky Laboratory under the Medicine King Group, won this year's Nobel Prize in Medicine. It was like a peerless swordsman wielding a sword to the throat. The audience was dead silent when the news was announced. It also announced the end of the Medicine King Group's new product launch. Some things had come to an end, but some things had just risen. Moreover, it would sweep through the universe with an unstoppable momentum. At this time, it was already 9:30. The market was open. The stock price of the Medicine King Group had reached the upper limit. In White Knight's trading room, the reporters looked at the people in the room sympathetically, as if they were looking at a group of dead people. Then they left. It's over. We lost. Nie Zhonghai's head was dizzy, and he couldn't even stand still. How did this kid build the Medicine King Group to such a powerful company? Nie Mingyuan's face was pale as if he had been struck by lightning. He stood there motionless. Who is our opponent? The stock price has reached the upper limit for 2 consecutive days. Xiao Miao's face was pale as he murmured to himself. No, I'm afraid the stock price will reach the upper limit in the next 10 days. This is godlike operation. In 3 days, their securities would be due and they would have to repay many financial institutions and securities companies. But obviously, the stock price of the Medicine King Group would continue to soar, far exceeding the cost of their securities. After a rough calculation, they would lose as much as 10 billion just by controlling the Medicine King Group. The key was that the Medicine King Group was always closed. They couldn't collect the chips to repay the securities at all, and faced the danger of being forced to liquidate. The deposits and pledged shares would be taken back by the financial institutions at a discount. What was worse was that the shares they pledged, including the 3 shares of Shanghai Real Estate, had been shorted crazily since yesterday, and the stock price kept plummeting. They were out of stock. Even if they lost all the shares of the 3 listed companies, it wouldn't be enough to cover the cost of the securities. This also meant that from a legal point of view, not only did the 3 families not have a single cent, but they also had to bear a huge debt, a debt that they couldn't repay in their lifetime. Chapter 249. Moreover, there were at least 20 bosses who followed the trend and made the Medicine King Group bankrupt. Many people stood there dumbfounded. They were angry, helpless, and desperate. They couldn't accept it at all. The small Jiang family. They were like ants in their eyes. They could kill them with a slap. But now they were actually fighting back. With a single press conference, they had turned the tables and brazenly showed their swords. The 3 major families of Jinling, the Chen family of Beijing, and the White Knight Fund of Hong Kong were all flustered and unable to resist at all. In the end, they suffered a crushing defeat. In their eyes, the Jiang family was no longer a weak family that could be bullied. Instead, it was a prehistoric beast that could devour the heavens and the earth, and they were little white rabbits trembling at the feet of the Medicine King Group. And all this was because of Jiang Tian. It was Jiang Tian's return that changed everything. However, even at this moment they still couldn't believe it. Jiang Tian was not only an expert in martial arts and surgery, but also a business genius who was proficient in business. He had won a financial war and a public opinion war. Now that they thought about it, Jiang Tian's every move was silent, but his plan was far-reaching. In the end, it was like a sudden clap of thunder, brazenly exploding, blasting them to the point where not even their bones remained. What a loss! What a loss! I've lost all my money. There were also many bosses who wept bitterly and wailed. Men don't cry easily, but they couldn't accept such a huge loss. It could be said that half of their life's hard work was destroyed in a day. For them, it was tantamount to falling from heaven to hell. Professor Fong, Boss Nia, what's going on? Don't you know the inside story of the Medicine King Group? Some bosses even pointed at Fong Zhanbo and shouted angrily. They couldn't wait to eat Fong Zhanbo alive. Fong Zhanbo stood there in a daze, as if he had lost his soul. He did not move at all, as if he did not hear these voices. He was very conservative. He invested very little money and earned money from commission, so the loss was not serious. However, he understood that after this defeat, his reputation would be destroyed, and his future career could be said to be over. This time, he had lost so badly that he had lost tens of billions of yuan. Who would dare to look for him? I'll send you 1,000 miles away. At this moment, Fong Zhanbo's mobile phone suddenly rang, causing him to shiver all over. He picked up the phone and answered it. After only 3 sentences, his face turned pale again. Our opponent is a one-eyed fund from Wall Street. The manipulator is Chen Zhenming. Fong Zhanbo's hand trembled violently, and the phone slipped to the ground. Then he said those words in a daze. It's him. Xiao Miao had a horrified expression as if he was grieving his parents, and he said helplessly with monstrous hatred, "No wonder we lost." The press conference of the Medicine King Group lasted from 8:30 to 9:30, and ended in just an hour. However, a storm that would engulf Jinling had just begun to brew. That morning, earth-shattering news came out one after another. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Chen Shuwen, the deputy director of the Chen family in Jinling, was investigated by the Provincial Commission for Discipline Inspection for corruption and bribery. At 11 o'clock in the morning, the Nye family's Shanghai real estate was investigated by the Jinling Economic Investigation Bureau for tax evasion and illegal competition. At 11 o'clock, the head of the Sun family, Sun Lingyun, was placed under house surveillance by the City Bureau for organizing illegal activities. The Xia family's Golden Rock Securities was permanently banned from the market for insider trading. The Provincial Commission for Discipline Inspection was also investigated. Unsheathing their swords, they slaughtered their way through. Many officials who had a close relationship with the three families were investigated and even arrested by the Public Security Bureau. This business war had a wide range of effects. This could be said to be the biggest and most shocking shock to the Jinling business circle after the reform. It was like an earthquake, shaking everyone's mind. For 3 days in a row, the stock prices of the Herbal Group, Shanghai Real Estate, Dynasty Real Estate, Tianwei Pharmaceuticals, Golden Rock Securities, and many other companies plummeted. 3 days later, at the Nye family's mansion, in the study room, Nye Zhonghai, Nye Mingyuan, Sun Lingyun, and Chen Donglin were discussing countermeasures. After the Medicine King Corporation's press conference, Fang Zhambua felt helpless. He was also afraid of being controlled by the Wuxia Securities Regulatory Bureau, so he had already fled to the United States. On the other hand, the Tianwei Group in Yanjin was also maliciously shorted, causing the stock price to plummet. Chen Jumbin's heart attack acted up, and he was sent to the first hospital in Yanjin. He was admitted to the intensive care unit and was in critical condition. Right now, the three great clans of Jinling could be said to be like monkeys scattering when the tree falls. The curtains in the room were tightly closed, the lights were dim, and the ashtray was filled with cigarette butts. The smell of smoke was pungent. Nye Zhonghai put down the antique phone and shook his head. I've already contacted my friends in Yanjin. No one there is willing to help. Assis. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They couldn't believe it. Nye Mingyuan frowned and asked, Father, why is that? Jiang Tian is powerful, but his influence has only reached Lingnan. Why are the forces in Yanjin afraid of him? Mingyuan, you are mistaken. We are all mistaken. Nye Zhonghai shook his head and sighed. Jiang Tian is not only the Master Kong of Jiangbei, but also the Master Kong of Lingnan. He is Kong Teichu, the man who killed Lin Zhenyu of the Great Circle at the Martial Arts Alliance Conference last year. Kong Teichu, he has another identity. Chen Donglin asked. He is known as the most powerful Grandmaster under the Immortal State in Wuxia. Nye Zhonghai said. The martial arts in Wuxia are divided into 4 stages: Iron Body, Internal Force, Transcendent State, and Immortal State. The immortal realm was illusory and only existed in legends. Below that is the Transcendent State, which is known as the Grandmaster in the martial arts world. He heaved a sigh and said, Transcendent Grandmasters are as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. There are only a handful of them in a province. Take Su Zhenlei of Jin City as an example. He is just an ordinary Transcendent Grandmaster, yet the government is wary of him. Jiang Tian is the most powerful Grandmaster in Wuxia. He is as powerful as Yi Zhantian, who has been in the long term. What? He is as powerful as Yi Zhantian? As soon as the words came out, the crowd gasped in shock. Everyone's eyes widened and their jaws dropped. I didn't know that we had such a powerful enemy. Chen Donglin mumbled to himself as his scalp went numb. Jiang Tian. Kong Teichu. He is a godlike figure. Sun Lingyun said as her legs gave out from under her. How is that possible? Nye Mingyuan waved his arms around and shouted like a madman. I have done a thorough investigation on Jiang Tian. He is extremely mediocre and useless. I believe that he had a fortuitous encounter and has some martial arts cultivation, but how can he be the #1 Grandmaster under the God State? Nye Mingyuan couldn't accept it. It was as if he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. Suddenly, an executive of Shanghai Real Estate walked into the room and said anxiously, Boss Nye, everyone, we have bad news. The financial institution that lent us the loan has closed its position. The value of the shares that we have pledged is not enough to cover our losses. We have to take on a huge debt. How much is the Chen family's debt? Chen Donglin asked in a trembling voice. 5 3 billion Wuxia dollars. The executive heaved a sigh. So much. Chen Donglin clutched his chest in agony. His heart was throbbing with pain, and he almost fell to the ground. Not only was his wealth gone, but he also had to take on a huge debt that he would never be able to pay back in his lifetime. What about the Nie family? Nie Zhonghai asked. 3 billion Wuxia dollars. The executive said with difficulty. Decades of hard work is gone in my hands. I'd rather die. Nie Zhonghai lamented. His head was dizzy. He hugged his head as tears streamed down his face. Dad, don't be sad. Where there's life, there's hope. Nie Mingyuan exclaimed and quickly fed him medicine for high blood pressure. What about the Sun family? Sun Lingyun asked anxiously. 2 billion Wuxia dollars. The executive couldn't bear it. Sun Lingyun was furious. He rushed out of the door and shouted, "This is all thanks to Jiang Tian. I'll tear him to pieces today." His son Sun Hao and brother Sun Lingyu died in the hands of Jiang Tian. Now, the Sun family was beaten to a pulp by Jiang Tian. He couldn't take it lying down. "Stop right there," Nie Zhonghai shouted. "Brother Zhonghai, if we don't get rid of him, the three major families of Jinling will be destroyed." Sun Lingyun gritted his teeth. "You're no match for him. It's useless even if hundreds of Qingyun society members attack him together." Nie Zhonghai shook his head and sighed. "He's the strongest grandmaster. Then what should we do?" Sun Lingyun was unwilling. "At this time, we should hide our strength and endure the humiliation." Nie Zhonghai took a deep breath and his thoughts gradually became clear. "Tomorrow, I'll go to him and ask him to let us go." "Will it work? He wants to kill us. This is tantamount to asking a tiger for its skin," Nie Mingyuan said. "We're just stalling for time. Your aunt ended her seclusion, and will return to Jinling in 3 days," Nie Zhonghai said. "When the time comes, we'll use the power of Wudong's sect to destroy the Jiang family. Who will dare to stop us? Xueman is finally coming back." When everyone heard this, their hearts and minds calmed down. It was as if they had obtained great support, and their spirits were roused. Nie Zhonghai sipped his tea and nodded. Then, a cold light flashed in his eyes and he said, "When the time comes, we'll take over the Jiang family and Medicine King group. The government won't dare to provoke Wudong's sect behind my sister." The next day, Jiang Tian was meditating in his villa. Suddenly, Yi Ziwei walked in and said softly, "Jiang Tian, Nie Zhonghai is here to visit." "Let him in." Jiang Tian opened his eyes and a cold light flashed in them. The corner of his mouth curved into a mocking smile. "Master Kong." Nie Zhonghai walked in and sat down in front of Jiang Tian. He put on the posture of a powerful grandmaster and said, "I know you're the strongest grandmaster under the immortal state and the ruler of Lingnan. This time, you've joined forces with Wall Street to defeat the Nie family and the other 2 families. This old man accepts his defeat wholeheartedly." Jiang Tian sat cross-legged. His peaceful face shone brightly. His white robe was spotless and he looked like an immortal. You didn't come to me just to talk nonsense, did you?" Jiang Tian suddenly said with a mocking face. Chapter 250. "Master Kong, please stop," Nie Zhonghai said in a deep voice. "Our 3 families have been utterly defeated by you. Please leave us some assets and bloodline. As for Master Kong killing my son, Nie Feng, and Sun Lingyu, our 3 families will let bygones be bygones. I guarantee that we will not take revenge." "You seem to be mistaken." Jiang Tian calmly took a sip of tea and said indifferently, "I killed them because they asked for it. They deserve to die. What reason do you have to take revenge on me? Besides, even if you want to take revenge on me, you're already penniless and carrying a huge debt. You're even worse than a beggar. What do you have to take revenge on me?" Nie Zhonghai almost vomited blood from Jiang Tian's words, but he was speechless. "Don't have any delusions," Jiang Tian said coldly. "I will exterminate your 3 families. Go back and wash your necks and wait for me to chop them off." He was domineering and unforgiving. No one from the 3 families could escape. All life and death were under Jiang Tian's control. You Nie Chonghai was so angry that he almost exploded on the spot. He roared in a deep voice. What benefits do you get from exterminating our 3 families? What benefits do you get from exterminating my Jiang family? Jiang Tian asked with a faint smile. His smile was full of disdain, and coldness. Those who killed would be killed by others. It was a principle that had never changed since ancient times. If you wanted to kill someone, you had to be prepared to be killed. Nie Chonghai sighed and said bitterly, if I told you that I didn't want to exterminate your Jiang family, would you believe me? Tell me. Jiang Tian's eyes lit up. The real culprit seemed to be about to be revealed. Nie Chonghai pondered for a long time before shaking his head and sighing. I can't say. Since you won't say it, then go back and wait for your death. Jiang Tian's eyes suddenly turned cold. You. Nie Chonghai was furious. He stood up and said in a deep voice, my Nie family has Wudong as its backing. I want to see how you're going to destroy my Nie family. In the next 2 days, the Nie, Chun, and Sun families could be described as being tossed about by a storm. The shares pledged by the 3 listed companies were forced to liquidate, and then acquired by the Medicine King Group and the Lingnan forces in the form of a large transaction. Jiang Tian's camp immediately called for a board meeting. Nie Zhonghai, Chun Donglin, and Sun Lingyun were kicked out of the board. At this point, the Medicine King Group and the Lingnan faction completely controlled the 3 listed companies, Chonghai Real Estate, Benchao Group, and Dynasty Real Estate. The dust settled. This could be called a classic financial sniping battle. Like a major earthquake, it shocked countless financial observers and triggered many comments. The Medicine King Group's counterattack has been successful. Its market value has exceeded 100 billion yuan, and it has become the #1 pharmaceutical giant in Wuxia, and the #1 business circle in Jinling. A big entrepreneur sighed. Unbelievable. Previously, the 3 major families had joined forces with Hong Kong's capital to attack the Medicine King Corporation. But who would have thought that the Medicine King Corporation would have so many tricks up their sleeves? They only used a new product launch to announce their powerful R&D capabilities and 20 billion yuan worth of orders. Their stock price had doubled in a short time, and they had turned the tables on the 3 major families. Many people felt as if they were in a dream. Everything felt like a dream. House Jiang actually won. In a coffee shop, Meng Yao sat by the window and watched the news in disbelief. It felt like a dream. Man, I followed Nie Mingyuan and sold out the Medicine King Group. We lost millions. I didn't think that Jiang Tian would win. This Nie Mingyuan really screwed me over. Useless trash. Tang Bauer's face was gloomy. Her cheeks were puffed up with tears. She was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. Yi Ziwei's performance at the product launch was amazing. Mu Yinqing watched the replay of the Medicine King Group's product launch tirelessly, envious. She felt that she was getting further and further away from Yi Ziwei. There was a sense of unfamiliarity. Who would have thought that Medicine King Group's product launch would be so powerful? That's right. Why is the laboratory that Jiang Tian established so powerful? That Huang Zhihui even won the Nobel Prize. It's amazing. Many of the rich girls in Jinling were stunned. They looked at Jiang Tian in a new light. Some of the people who followed the trend and shorted the Medicine King Group were even more disappointed. They vomited 3 liters of blood and cried. Are there any other moves from House Jiang? If they make a move against us, we're all done for. Many rich and powerful people who were on good terms with the 3 great clans were trembling and scared out of their wits by the Jiang family's combination punch. I'm afraid that from now on, there will be no more 3 noble houses in Jinling. House Jiang will be the only voice in Jinling, or even the entire Su province. Wu Bo, the author of the famous business commentator The Big Break, wrote an article overnight. It was the final footnote of this earth-shattering financial war. Everyone fell silent when they saw this article. They felt a sense of sorrow in their hearts. The market value of Medicine King Group had skyrocketed to hundreds of billions. It was the largest pharmaceutical company in Wuxia. All the other listed companies in Jinling combined were no match for it. More importantly, the powerful connections, monstrous background, dazzling operational methods, and domineering demeanor that the Jiang family had displayed in this financial war were not something that the original three families could compare with. It could be said that by the end of this financial war, House Jiang would be the most powerful family in Jinling. They were even qualified to compete with the major families in Zhejiang Province and Zhonghai. That night, the night was dark. The core members of House Nie, House Chen, and House Sun gathered in the house of Nie. My sister is on her way back, but we have to leave Jinling first. Nie Changhai said in a deep voice. Why? Since Xuaman is coming back, we have to fight side by side and destroy House Jiang. Chen Donglin was puzzled. Where there is life, there is hope. After my sister kills the House Jiang, the Medicine King group will be in chaos. We can use this opportunity to raise funds abroad. After my sister succeeds, we will come back and take over the Medicine King group. Nie Zhonghai was far-sighted and his eyes were sharp. It was as if he had become an ambitious and ruthless big shot who could intimidate a region. Besides, House Jiang has a powerful background. They have many friends and supporters in the government. If we leave now, we can avoid suspicion and be targeted by the government. That's right. Sun Lingyun expressed her support. Very well. By the time we come back, House Jiang would have already been destroyed. Chen Donglin had also made up his mind. Even as Nie Changhai was about to give the order to leave, a few bloodied security guards scrambled into the room. Outside the door, Su Ruoqing, who was wearing a tight-fitting leather jacket and leather pants, walked in with a blood-stained long knife in her hand. Her phoenix eyes were stern. Behind her was a group of thugs with long blades and axes in their hands. They looked murderous and ferocious. At the same time, the roar of engines came from outside the house. Lights flashed. There were at least 100 vehicles. It was a shocking sight. Su Ruoqing, what is the meaning of this? Why did you break into House Nie and hurt my family? Nie Changhai stepped forward and shouted angrily. Haha, I heard that Uncle Nie is going abroad. I, Su Ruoqing, am here to see you off. Su Ruoqing chuckled and emphasized the word see you off. What do you mean? Nie Mingyuan was shocked. He knew that Su Ruoqing had already pledged allegiance to Jiang Tian, but he did not expect her to be so loyal to Jiang Tian, to the extent that she did not hesitate to become enemies with the three great clans for Jiang Tian. Nothing. Su Ruoqing sat down on Nie Mingyuan's seat, as if she was the master of House Nie. She crossed her legs and said with a smile, I'm afraid you won't be able to walk out of here tonight. With just the few of you? Nie Changhai looked at her with disdain. The Nie family had been deeply rooted in Jinling for decades, seizing and robbing. They lived a life of licking blood from the edge of the blade. How could they not raise a group of death warriors? In order to escape successfully, he had gathered all the thugs of the Qingyan society, including 3 who had reached phenomenal success in the iron body art. I'm not the only one. Master Kong wants you dead. Many people are sharpening their swords. Su Ruoqing smiled and then looked at the door. She said loudly, Since you're here, come in. Outside the door, Yi Gufeng, Dragon Fifth, and Zhou Jinghao each brought their men in. Tai Ming Huang, Bai Choufei, and Tang Xiaoza, the 3 great young thugs of Sheep City, also brought in the experts of South Ridge Flying Cloud Association. Shen Mange, Ghost Kick, Li Jinwei, Qiu Gong, and other martial artists occupied the high ground of the villa. Nie Zhonghai and the others were dumbstruck when they saw so many experts arrive in unison, and they shuddered with fear. These people were undoubtedly here for the 3 major families of Jinlin City. In the end, a leisurely and cold voice enveloped the entire place. Nie Changhai, I told you to wash your necks and wait for me to chop them off. I didn't tell you to leave. A man wearing a white shirt and casual pants walked in lazily. He had a calm expression on his face. Jiang Tian. Nie Mingyuan glared at Jiang Tian with hatred. He gritted his teeth and glared at him. Do you have to be so ruthless? Jiang Tian is here. Nie Changhai's body trembled violently. Everyone's expression also changed and they panicked. Master Kong, please sit. Seeing Jiang Tian walk in, Su Ruoqing quickly gave the chair to Jiang Tian. She stood behind Jiang Tian like a maid. Jiang Tian walked in slowly and sat down on the chair calmly. This was the seat of the patriarch of the Nie family, but he seemed to take it for granted. Seeing this, Nie Mingyuan was furious and shouted, Jiang Tian, this is not the place for you to sit. Seeing the culprit who destroyed the Nie family sitting on the seat of the patriarch of the Nie family, he was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. The blood in his chest was boiling. He couldn't wait to punch Jiang Tian. However, he was stopped by Nie Changhai. Nie Changhai frowned and said, Master Kong, what are you trying to do? The 3 major families don't just want to buy the Medicine King group. Jiang Tian's face was calm, as if he was talking about something unrelated to him. He said indifferently, they want to completely eliminate the Jiang family. After destroying the Jiang family's economic and political power, you want to kill them. At this point, you can stop lying. Chapter 251. Nie Zhonghai knew that there was no way for him to argue. He sighed and said, Jiang Tian, I admit that it is true. Why? Jiang Tian asked curiously, what are you thinking? If you want money, you can just take the Medicine King group. Tell me, don't make me torture you. I have 100 ways to make you wish you were dead. Nie Zhonghai gulped and said in a trembling voice, it's the Japanese Cherry Blossom Society. They want an incomplete map of the Jiang family. It is said that this ancient map is related to the secret of the immortal state. Cherry Blossom Society? What kind of organization is that? Everyone was confused. It's a militaristic organization. They have a huge influence in Japan, just like the long formation of Wuxia. Su Ruoqing said. Shameless. Zhou Jinghao shouted. When the Japanese invaded China, they killed 300,000 innocent people in Jinlin City. Blood flowed like a river and bodies piled up like a mountain. As a descendant of the Yellow Emperor, you are willing to be the Japanese's lackey. Shameless. You've forgotten your ancestors. Shameless. This person is clearly a traitor. How dare he work for the Japanese? He should be hacked into pieces. Everyone was outraged and cursed loudly. Among them, Dragon Fifth, Zhou Jinghao was not a good person at all. He had killed and robbed people, but he still held the bottom line. How could he be careless when it came to matters of national interest? Umitba, you are all sinners of the nation. Kill yourselves to appease the world. I will chant Buddhist scriptures for you. Tang Xiaozi chanted Buddhist scriptures and shook his head, trying to persuade Nie Zhonghai and the rest to kill themselves. Mr. Jiang, why are you still talking to him? I'll just kill him. Su Ruoqing in particular was burning with rage. She ground her fine silver teeth, wanting nothing more than to tear Nie Zhonghai and the others into pieces. I see. I didn't expect the Japanese to be behind the Nie family, and the other 2 families. Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes, and a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. Looks like I have to make a trip to Japan. And you are willing to be their lackeys. You deserve to be killed. Seeing the murderous intent in Jiang Tian's eyes, Nie Zhonghai said in a low voice, Master Kong, our 3 families have schemed and plotted thousands of times, but in the end, we still failed. Why won't you let us go? He let you go? If you succeed, will you let the Jiang family go? Jiang Tian's tone was cold and indifferent, like 10,000-year-old ice, icy cold without the slightest trace of emotion. He had returned after 10,000 years of cultivation, just to take revenge. How could he be merciful at this moment? If he didn't kill every single one of them, if he didn't destroy every single one of them, if he didn't destroy every single one of them, if he didn't destroy every single one of them, how could he possibly give up? How could he possibly be satisfied? Jiang Tian, do you really want to fight to the death? Nie Zhonghai cried out in despair. Jiang Tian's arrival was too timely. If he had been an hour later, no, only 10 minutes later, they would have fled to Southeast Asia and the United States on a smuggling boat. Fight to the death. Jiang Tian picked up the teacup and took a sip, then said with a smile, You really know how to flatter your 3 great clans. Look at Wuxia. Which family, organization, or force is worthy of Jiang Tian fighting to the death? Including your big backer Wudong, they are just ants that I, Jiang Tian, can casually kill. Charge out. Nie Zhonghai suddenly gritted his teeth and roared. Bian Xuedao Wangba, you take the lead. Everyone, charge out together. Yes. 2 brawny men responded loudly. Then they exhaled and rushed out of the door with a group of bodyguards. Wang Ba and Bian Xuedao were the 2 most powerful experts under Nie Zhonghai. Both of them were at the Iron Body phenomenal success stage. They could crush rocks with their fists and kill leopards and tigers with a kick. They were also his most important bodyguards in this escape. Wang Ba and Bian Xuedao were wanted criminals in the past, but Nie Zhonghai took them in and used his connections to clear their names. It could be said that without Nie Zhonghai, they would have been caught and shot by the police. Therefore, they were also loyal to Nie Zhonghai. At this moment, even if they knew that they were in danger, they still took the lead and rushed to the door of the villa with their machetes. Trash. The foundation of the Nie, Sun, and Chun families is too weak. Seeing this, Jiang Tian looked calm and did not move. He just sipped his tea and chuckled disdainfully. Wang Ba and Bian Xuedao rushed to the door of the villa in the blink of an eye. You're courting death. In the crowd, Su Ruoqing's face was cold and stern. She snorted arrogantly and pulled out her machete. Her graceful and sexy body spun nimbly in the air like an antelope hanging its horns. The sharp machete covered a large area like mercury. Crash. There was a crash. Wang Ba's head was blown more than a meter high by the blood spurting out from his neck cavity. The headless body fell to the ground, splashing scarlet blood waves. Bian Xuedao's body was directly cut from his right shoulder to his left rib. His body was cut in 2 and fell to the ground. Steaming hot internal organs flowed all over the ground. Whoosh! Whoosh! The friction between the soles of shoes and the floor suddenly sounded. Everyone slammed on the brakes and stopped in their tracks. They looked at Su Ruoqing with horror in their eyes. Under the horrified gaze of everyone, Su Ruoqing drew a bloody line at the door with her machete dripping with blood. Those who cross this line will be killed without mercy. Su Ruoqing's expression did not change at all after killing 2 iron body experts. It was as if she had just killed 2 ants. The scene was filled with horror. Some women were sobbing, some children were wailing, some were praying, and some were trembling. Who else dares to come and die? Su Ruoqing put one hand on her waist and twisted her right wrist. She drew a bright machete and threw the blood off the machete. She glanced at the crowd and asked in a deep voice. Su Ruoqing's attack was ruthless and merciless. She completely displayed her monstrous killing intent as the underground queen of Jinling City. Nie Zhonghai was so scared that his face turned ashen. Many people were so scared that their faces turned gloomy. They felt despair and kept quiet out of fear. The 2 most powerful experts of the Nie family were killed by Su Ruoqing. Who else would dare to fight against her? Fine. It's too late. Nie Zhonghai was stunned for a long time. Then he suddenly heaved a sigh and knelt down toward Jiang Tian. He begged in a trembling voice. Master Kong, it's my fault for plotting against the Jiang family. It has nothing to do with the Nie family. I can take the responsibility by myself. Please let the rest of the Nie family go. Father! Brother Zhonghai! Seeing this, many members of the Nie family exclaimed. Their hearts were filled with pain, sorrow, and despair. Nie Zhonghai had dominated Jinling City for decades. He was ruthless and resourceful. But now he could only kneel down and beg for mercy, which meant that he could not think of any way to fight back or escape. On the other hand, Nie Zhonghai had always been proud and unyielding, and he wasn't even afraid of the secretary of the municipal party committee. But at this moment, he disregarded his dignity and face and knelt down to beg for mercy. It could be said that he had lost all face and was in an extremely sorry state. This made Chen Donglin and Sun Lingyun grieve for the loss of the rabbit. Kill yourself. As soon as Jiang Tian finished speaking, bang! Zhou Zhenghao threw a dagger at him. Nie Zhonghai's body trembled. The whole area was silent. Everyone was frightened. The dagger was about half a foot long. It was sharp and flashing with cold light, revealing an extremely cold aura. Even looking at it made one's heart feel cold, not to mention stabbing one's heart or cutting one's throat with the dagger. But now, Nie Zhonghai had no other choice. Amidst the silence, his eyes were dull and empty as he slowly picked up the dagger. Father, no. Nie Mingyuan let out a cry. He wanted to go forward, but was kicked to the ground by Ghost Foot. As for the others, they had been frightened by Jiang Tian's overwhelming power. How could they dare to fart? Nie Zhonghai's heart was filled with sorrow. He trembled because of fear and tears came out of his eyes. His heart was filled with regret, pain, and helplessness. He had killed countless people in his life. He had seen his opponents cry in despair and helplessness. But he had never thought that it would be his turn so soon, and that his life would end in such a miserable way. But he didn't have the right to blame Jiang Tian, because this was the Jianghu, the cruel truth of the world, the law of the jungle. He had fallen and failed because he was not strong enough. If he had defeated the Medicine King group, he would not have had any mercy. He would have killed Jiang Tian, or even more cruelly. If I kill myself, you let go of the Nie family. Nie Zhonghai breathed heavily and begged pitifully with tears in his eyes. He held the dagger with both hands, and pointed the tip of the dagger at his chest. His gaze was resolute, but also bitter. Jiang Tian, please let go of my father. I am willing to die for my father. We know that we are wrong. Nie Mingyuan couldn't control himself anymore. He gave up his dignity as the young master of the Jinling city, and knelt down to beg for mercy. He kowtowed to Jiang Tian so hard that blood came out of his forehead. You are all losers. You have no right to bargain with me. Jiang Tian's tone was cold, but his heart was aching. In his previous life, when the Medicine King group was defeated by the Nie family, he had also begged and knelt down to beg for mercy. But the father and son of the Nie family were like high and mighty nobles. They were cold and merciless, looking at him as if he was an ant. Now the wheel of fortune had turned. The hatred that had accumulated for 10,000 years was finally avenged. Jiang Tian was overjoyed and happy. Mingyuan, don't make trouble. Nie Zhonghai turned his head and scolded. Then he glanced at the Nie family members reluctantly and said in a deep voice, After I die, you must remember that today's grudge must never be mentioned again. Also, the Nie family members must not compete with others for benefits, practice martial arts, or bully others. They must pass on poetry and literature to the family, stand aloof from worldly affairs, and be kind to others. Otherwise, I will not die in peace. Father, Brother Zhonghai, Uncle. The Nie family members knelt down and wailed. Nie Zhonghai's old mother even cried so hard that her limbs twitched and she passed away. The current Nie family could be said to be a complete tragedy. They were like fish on a chopping board, unable to resist, and were at the mercy of others. Nie Zhonghai was determined to die. Only if he committed suicide as an apology would Jiang Tian let the Nie family off. Puchi. Nie Zhonghai looked at the crowd resolutely. He raised his hand, and the sharp dagger plunged directly into his heart. The dagger was completely buried, leaving only the hilt. It could be seen that he was very determined to die. Blood dripped down, and Nie Zhonghai's mouth also oozed blood. He smiled bitterly and said, Master Kong, is it enough? Not enough. Jiang Tian looked at him with a smile, and the corners of his mouth curved into a cruel and cold smile. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.